All right, good morning, everyone. Thursday, September the 24th. This is our last open session of September before we move into the month of October. Time seems to be really flying by. A little bit different here today, and I'll explain that in a moment as to what we are attempting to do here. Today is, well, let's do our rise for the pledge first, and our moment of silence. We want to keep all in our thoughts that are on the front lines, as always, in this pandemic. We also want to keep all those that are on the front lines of the flooding and the fires out west. And certainly we had a notable death in the last few days of our judge, our Supreme Court Judge, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she's lying in state, and there'll be things to honor her for the next few days. So let's keep all of that in our thoughts this morning as we do our moment of silence as well. So if we'd all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks, everyone. As I began to say earlier, we're coming to you in a little bit different format today. And I'll apologize to my colleague, Commissioner Weaver. This sort of took him off guard this morning, and that's on me. And my apologies to you, sir. That won't happen again. Of course, I've only got 2 years to do that. So, maybe I'll be all right in the next 2 years. But we are trying to do a hybrid method moving forward here in some fashion. And as a result of that, we decided today, because kudos to Chris Swam and his crew who do an amazing job here with our technology. This is going to be different. This is not going to be business as we normally do it here. We've got the plexiglass up. But, the 6 feet distancing is probably not in play just yet. We're not going to be able to have folks actually come into this room and present. That's going to have to all still be done virtually for a while. And we also have to have Chris in the room right near us in order to do all of our controls, to mute, unmute, and so forth. So I'd like our citizens, our staff, and everyone just to please bear with us today. This is indeed a test, and we're doing what we can to try to get back to some kind of normalcy. And I made the decision, and Commissioner Rothstein was here with me earlier this week, that we give this a shot today. So Commissioner Boucher and I are actually about 12 feet separated this morning. And we're going to give this a go and see if this works. And if it does, then we will discuss it between the 5 of us and come up with some sort of hybrid method here moving forward. And that's where we are right now. So again, I ask for your patience this morning, and we'll see how everything goes. Sound-wise and everything else, this is all experimental. So we're doing camera angles, whatever. This is all, we're doing the best we can. So today is indeed a test, and then the 5 of us can discuss what we'd like to do moving forward. So with that being said, let's go into Priority Carol. I also want to mention that we are missing one commissioner today. Commissioner Frazier is on personal business today, and he will catch up, as all of us do, when he can with this session. So with that being said, I will start this morning with Commissioner Boucher, who is about 12 and a half, 14 feet from me. And we'll start with you, Commissioner, with Priority Carol. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you very much. And before I start my Priority Carol, I want to make mention that I've just been notified that Commissioner Wance's mother has been hospitalized. I believe she has a broken leg. Please keep her in your prayers, as someone who still has both my parents, that's something I continuously worry about. And the older my parents get, the more I'm concerned about their health, especially with broken bones. So please keep Commissioner Wance's mother in your prayers.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome, Commissioner. This week, I had the honor of visiting a construction site in Woodbine doing a storm drain repair with Kathy Burtz, who is the Roads Administrative Supervisor. I hope I got the title correct. She recently replaced Eric Silverman, who was probably spent 30-some years with the county, so she has big shoes to fill, but so far, so good. Everyone seems to appreciate her leadership and her service. We visit the construction site. Here we go. This is a construction crew led by one Mr. Antoine Williams, foreman of roads operation. And it was wonderful to go out and see these guys. There's a guy down in the hole, and there's the piece they're replacing. They've determined that the brick system and mortar that's underneath these gratings over time is exposed to water and ice and freeze and is busting them up. So now they're upgrading the system to a precast concrete mold, which should last far longer than the old system. So there's Ms. Vertz showing me what they're up to there. So I'd like to thank all these people. And also, while I was out there meeting with the guys out in the field, they're very much concerned about road safety since they're working out there on the roads. They want to make sure I mention to people, please slow down around construction sites. You know, hundreds, maybe even thousands of construction workers a year get injured or killed out on the road construction jobs. So please be very much aware of these people that are out there working for you, maintaining our roads. And I think that'll wrap up my priority, Carol. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. I will move to Commissioner Weaver. Commissioner Weaver, good morning.
Good morning. Well, I've had my issues, I guess, with roads here in the past week as they're doing some tar and chip in my area. And it is concern, I think, when you look at the, the dust and the chips from the roads, and people have voiced their concerns to me with that. But there's also the fact is we're trying to extend the life of roads, and I'm relying on our roads crews to at least give us the facts that, if we can seal these roads and seal the cracks, we can extend the life of those roads another 5 to 7 years. That is tremendous for us. And I asked the people in this area to just bear with me for a period of time. They sealed a bunch of it. It's going away. The worst of it's over, and hopefully we won't have to put up with tar and chip or any other roads issues here for another 10 years, perhaps, or so. So that's my major issue this past week, and I spent a lot of time with a lot of people in this area dealing with these issues. So hope they bear with us, and that's about all I have for today.
Okay, Commissioner Rothstein, good morning.
Yeah, Steve, when you talked about this being the last session in September, I reflected on a feeling of when we're on deployments. And the feeling is that the days can be very long, but the weeks fly by. And that's exactly the way things have been feeling. Where issues come up every day, we got to deal with them. They could be long throughout the day, but then before you know it, the next month is coming up upon us. I feel like sometimes we also sound like a broken record in the sense that we focus ourselves on safety and we continue to share the continued message of wearing a mask, social distancing, washing our hands. I just ask that we lessen the rhetoric and lessen the sense of listening to the rhetoric that's out there. And hopefully the newspaper that supports our community will continue to share the message that we're trying to get through this together by social distancing, wearing a mask, and washing our hands. I appreciate you mentioning Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she will be lying in state in the Capitol tomorrow, the first woman to ever lie in state, which, unfortunately is such an honor, and unfortunately is done when she has passed. But it also reminds me she did pass on the first night of Rosh Hashanah, which is our new year. So those that are celebrating the new year with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Wishing everybody a safe fast on Monday and a Shana Tova. Lastly, I attended the Economic Alliance of Greater Baltimore meeting yesterday. We said farewell to County Executive McCarthy out of Cecil County, along with Mayor Jack Young. Both will not be at the next session. And regardless of how we feel politically or whatever about anybody that serves, the first and foremost feeling is that they are servant leaders and they are there putting themselves out there to serve their communities. So it was nothing but, best wishes to the two of them. And again, it's nice to participate in the Economic Alliance of Greater Baltimore because it highlights all the great things we're doing here in Carroll County. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ed. For me, just very quickly, a couple things. Commissioner Frazier and I attended the renaming, if you will, of the Westminster branch of the library system on Friday. They had it in the front yard, social distanced, and everybody had a mask on, by the way. And there's the broken record part of it, Ed. So kudos to our library system. They did open back up in a limited fashion this past Monday. So you can visit the library. I'm not sure the details as to who they're allowing or how many people they're allowing in. You'll certainly call ahead if you want to go to your branch, but they are back in a limited fashion. And they've renamed the Westminster branch the Davis Library, which many of you who grew up here remember was the original name of the library on Main Street. The big white building on the left as you go up Main Street with the big pillars. It actually used to be a church years ago. And many of us have fond memories of walking in and up those marble steps. And you could go down, and that was the youth children's section. And when you walked up the marble steps, or the steps inside, that was the adult library, if you will. And I often mention this, and everybody agrees. That place had a smell about it. It was a library smell now. It wasn't a bad smell. It was a library smell. That was just, it's ever ingrained in us if you spent time there. So they decided to honor the Davis family and all of those who contributed to make sure that we have the first library here in Carroll. There's a huge history there. You, Commissioner Boucher, if you haven't read that history, you being the history geek that you are, should look at that if you haven't already, because the history there of who donated the land and who donated this is incredible. So check that one out.
Thank you.
But I want to congratulate our library system. Andrea over there, Bursler, our great executive director, led the charge there. And then we had a tour, a brief tour of what they're doing with the Commons over there. And that's going to be an interesting and very unique place. So I want to congratulate all of them. So that's that. And I also want to say that Commissioner Boucher had his chamber business breakfast this week without eggs and bacon. But
Diet.
yeah. So you did such a good job, Boucher, that you made the headlines in the Carroll County Times. When I did my breakfast, I wasn't anywhere to be found in the Carroll County Times. So you obviously did a great job. So anyway,
Thank you.
all about communication, staying in touch, and paying tribute to our business community is important. Because the 30th, I believe, Ed, if I'm correct, you're the expert on this. Still have time to get in on the Carroll rebound money, and we'll hear from Jack here in a moment when we get to that part. So we'll turn that over to him. So other than that, that's all that I've got. I believe we had a couple Mako calls this week, and we continue to be on top of this thing as best we can. I know the school board met last night as well, but we're going to have Ed Singer on here this morning. So without Commissioner Frazier here, we'll let him give a brief update if he so chooses as to what the decisions were over there last night. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Commissioner Boucher. We have a proclamation in reference to Constitution Week. So Commissioner Boucher.
Thank you, sir. And thanks for sharing the local history in the library. If my memory serves me correctly, Judge Joe Getty is really big on Carroll County local history, and I think he published a book on it. So he's always all about advocating their local history. And I also want to thank Commissioner Rothstein, who backed me up with some comments at the chamber breakfast. He was able to come in and update people on the Rebound Cares project, which he had more knowledge than I do on, and he was very helpful. So, Commissioner, thank you for that help. All right, this proclamation is Constitution Week begins 9/17/2020. Whereas we, the people, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. And whereas it is important that all citizens fully understand the provisions, principles, and meaning of the Constitution so they can support, preserve, and defend it against encroachment. And whereas Constitution Week provides an opportunity for all Americans to learn about and to reflect upon the rights and privileges of citizenship and its responsibilities. And whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States by our nation's founders. And whereas the Congress, by a joint resolution of February 29th, 1952, designated September 17th as Citizenship Day. And by joint resolution of August 2nd, 1956, requested that the President proclaim the week beginning September 17th of each year as Constitution Week. And it is fitting to accord official county recognition to this important anniversary. Whereas all leaders of civic, social, and education organizations conduct ceremonies and programs that celebrate our Constitution and reaffirm our rights and obligations as citizens of our great nation. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners, do hereby commend the Westminster chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution for lending its leadership to promoting this historic and patriotic observation and preserving our cherished American heritage. Thank you for the honor of allowing me to read that.
Okay, thanks, Eric. We've been doing that quite a few years, and in normal times we'd have some guests that would come in to back up the proclamation or speak briefly about that. But obviously today we were unable to make that happen. So we just want to pass along to those folks that we are still honoring that, and I appreciate you reading that. So thanks.
You're welcome.
We did invite Mr. Angler,
Oh, okay.
but
We did.
It doesn't seem to have joined the meeting.
Okay, so we did invite Mr. Angler from the Sons of the American Revolution, but we don't have him on. So if he comes on a little bit later, we'll try to get him on. But at this point, we don't have him. So okay, all right. Anything else for Priority Carroll, folks? County Administrator Wyndham, do you have anything this morning for Priority Carroll? And she's nodding no. So there you go. That's the other thing we're going to get. You're only going to see either myself or Commissioner Boucher right now. So again, this is a work in progress here. We're trying to work out bugs, and we're trying to get to the point where we'd be able to do something here hybrid. And it may not happen for a while, but today is, again, just a test, ladies and gentlemen. It's only a test. So, okay. With that being said, we've got a huge Priority Carroll item here. And I would ask if Tom Devilbiss would come on board here. And Tom, we're going to pay tribute to a gentleman who's been part of Carroll County for, well, I don't know how many years. If I guess, I'd probably tick him off this morning. Clay and I actually have a history because we go further back than our connection here at county government. Clay and I kind of knew each other with the fire service for many, many years. And, there was this little game called softball that he and I used to throw bats and balls at one another across the field. So anyway, we're paying tribute to a gentleman today who is the heart and soul of Carroll County. And Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Yes, we're certainly here to recognize one of Carroll County's best, Carroll County government's best, actually. Unfortunately, he'll be retiring from service next Wednesday. He is a homegrown from the Manchester area, as you just indicated. He started actually with the county September 26th of 1983 to get the specifics out. So upon his retirement next week, 37 years of service will be what Clay has provided to the citizens of Carroll County. He started in permits and inspections, I think as a permits expediter. I think that's a fixer. Another word for that is the fixer. And then he went through construction agreements coordinator, development system supervisor, finally concurrency manager. And then in 2005, he landed his role that he has right now as Bureau Chief of Development Review. And during that time, he actually took advantage of the county's educational assistance program and got his master's degree in business administration in 1999. So Clay has quite a bit of accomplishments that he's had. It's safe to say that just about every development project in the county and the municipalities, Clay has either reviewed or supervised over the past 30 plus years. And that's quite a wealth of knowledge that Clay has somewhere up there in his knowledge, in his brain. Wit, knowledge, demeanor, everything that he portrays every day is certainly a model of a true public servant, and one that I think Carroll County is so full of and blessed with. I want to just point out that Clay's dedication, experience, and his vast knowledge truly excelled during this recent COVID reduction in staff that we had. His ability to maintain the continuity of the services that the Bureau of Development Review provides, and actually the Department of Land and Resource Management, he jumped in and provided so much support to me and the whole department. And it was just an outstanding, unparalleled effort that Clay performed here in the last 6 to 7 months. And I don't think there's enough kudos I can give him. It really allowed Clay and I to get a heck of a lot closer because we had very few people, here to bounce things off of. And when problems came up, we just had to solve them. And Commissioner Rothstein, as you said, it was just day by day, get it done, move on. So personally, my utmost respect and deep appreciation to Clay. It's just very hard to convey in words, but it certainly is there. So Commissioners, please take your parting shots at Clay. This is Clay's getaway week. So please, he's up for the shots.
Okay, so yeah, we'll engage in those shots, absolutely. Let's hear from my colleagues first before we hear from Mr. Black. So Weaver's right over top of him. So I'm going to start with Commissioner Weaver. Dick?
Well, I think I first ran into Clay probably 30 some years ago in permits. And, he had that straightforward style, very honest, very open about what the policies were and what we need to do. And I have to say, now that I see him in action in a little different role, he still has that same style. And Clay, never lose that. You've done a great job here in Carroll County. You're really respected by everybody in the county, and I think you earned your retirement. I will say that. But, the respect you've earned from people, whether it's developers, citizens, anybody that either got permits or has to go through development review, is tremendous. So enjoy life, and I think you've earned every year of it. So thank you.
Ed, Commissioner Rothstein.
Well, I think the first question is, y'all have known each other for 30 plus years. You, Commissioner Wayans, Commissioner Weir, did you all have hair back then? I mean, that's kind of, the first question I have. But a lot of things are going to be said about, the service you provided, the selflessness. The three words or three sentiments I just want to share with you. You've been a mentor to me, albeit just in a very short time I've been here on the board for a couple of years. You've been a very strong mentor, and I appreciate that. You continuously had that even keel approach with the discussions that you provide and the guidance, and then also the responsiveness. I've dealt with a lot of staff, and I've been on a lot of staffs, and we can only ask for, that approach that you provide. You have been I think, a mentor in the way you do things to everyone around you. So from me to you, thank you. And 30 plus years, it's obviously a love of this community that has kept you around. So thank you so much for all that you've done, and really best wishes on your retirement.
I think Commissioner Rothstein really summed it up good. I believe mentorship comes from all kinds of directions, and you provided mentorship to a lot of people over the years. I remember when I first met you, I had a constituent meeting in my office. You came in with some other staff members. You laid out maps. You were very direct, straightforward, no fluff, to the point. I love it. And I know that dealing with constituents that have issues with the planning review, I think even if things don't come out exactly the way they want it, they respect your honesty and straightforwardness, and in the end, they're happy with what comes out of it. And that comes from your years of professionalism and dedication to the county. I hope you get to enjoy your retirement, do some traveling. I don't know if you have grandchildren or how many you have, but they're always fun to have. I always say grandchildren are better than children. They're like rentals, you can return them. So enjoy life to its fullest. God bless, and thank you very much for your service to the county.
Okay, now we're back. Little delay here. We're trying to get cameras and everything else engaged here. To me, again, it's personal here. And I've said this to many of the employees that we've seen ride off into the sunset in the last several months. I have an incredible amount of respect for Clay. He is he is just an incredible guy who just found his niche here. And a couple of you have talked about the way in which he works with people. Clay's just got that way about him, that he's been able to do that. And let's be clear, he's in a department that ain't always easy. I got to tell you, that can be a challenge. But I stuck my head in Clay's office yesterday and looked up and saw that the walls were empty. And I think that's when it finally hit me that Clay's not going to be in there. And he's been a go-to for countless people over the years. And as we always do, someone will fill those shoes, but they're going to be incredibly hard shoes to fill, Clay, because you are the prime example of what it takes here in Carroll and what it means for this county to move forward. And you've been a perfect example of that. Your fingerprints, my friend, are on thousands and thousands of buildings, acreage. It might even reach to every single corner of this county and all points in between. So on behalf of the citizens of Carroll County, it is my great honor to say thank you, sir, for all that you have done for everybody in this county. You are not going to soon be forgotten. You just have been amazing. So before we hear from you, Clay, Roberta, I know that you've had the opportunity to work with Clay for quite some time as well. So I'll let you go here.
Well, thank you. Clay, I know you both as a citizen and as a co-worker in county government. And I just echo the things that Tom and the commissioners have said. I truly do appreciate the time that you have given me, the education that you've given me, both again as a citizen and a coworker. You are a true gentleman, and you do imbibe everything that is right about Carroll County government. You could, if we had a poster child for Carroll County government, your face should be on it. You will be missed every day, and I wish you the very, very best in your retirement. Thank you.
Okay, Clay, I'm going to turn this over to you. And if you want to speak for the next 2.5, 3 hours, baby, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It'll be 2.5, 3 hours, because I don't like talking a lot. I just want to say I thank you, everyone, for all the kind words that you have said. To touch on some of the things, it is a love of Carroll County that I have. It always has been, and it is, this is Carroll County. This is where we live. This is, you just want to make everything, you just want to do what you think is best. And that's what I always work for myself. Just work with integrity. And, it's been an incredible privilege to be employed by Carroll County Commissioners over 37 years, all the Board of Commissioners, and to work on behalf of the citizens and the businesses of Carroll County. And that is the thing that I try to remember every day, is the citizens and businesses that we are working for, to try to make things, what it is, the best way that it can be. And also to remember, working with the government is not always easy. And whether or not it's through having to make a phone call, sending an email, a letter in, or now virtual, it's not easy. And everybody has a story, and you need to treat everybody, whether or not they have whatever their level of skill is, whatever their level of employment, or wherever their level of education is. Every person's important. And that's what I try to do. And I think that's what the commissioners, it's just been. So I just want to again thank the Board of Commissioners, all the Board of Commissioners. I want to thank you five. It's been a privilege. Like I said, it's just been an opportunity. And again, Tom mentioned I got my master's. The Board of Commissioners provided lots of opportunities, and that is one of the opportunities that I am very much happy that they did provide that. And, I just feel that working for the Board Commissioners, it's a great opportunity. So I just want to thank you and all the boards.
Okay, thanks.
Enjoy, Clay.
Yeah, and also as far as for my retirement, I'm going to be spending as much time as I can with my wife doing things that we try to do on the weekend. We try to cram in on the weekend that now we can do during the week. Bike riding, hiking, going to gardens, going to museums, doing time together that we're going to be able to do. So that is my retirement.
Well, I know you'll enjoy yourself, Clay. You and your wife are special people. And I just want to, again, say that it's been an honor. Tom, I'll give you the last word here for Clay. I don't think this is going to be the last word. This might be the last word virtually this morning, but I believe there's probably a little bit more to come. Is that right, sir?
Yes, I mean, obviously Clay is retiring next Wednesday, and so I would invite all the county employees next Tuesday. We're going to have an event out at the Farm Museum under one of the pavilions out there. Again, social distancing and masks. From 11:30 to 1, folks can come from the county office building and from roads and all those allied agencies who had contact with Clay and can wish him farewell. And then I think it's from 1 to 3 or 1:30 to 3. The surveying community, the municipalities, those folks have been invited. So we kind of separate the groups of people there. But again, always recognizing social distancing. But I would encourage people to come and just say a farewell to Clay for, again, just an incredible service. Well done job. Thank you.
Okay, Clay, we will see you next week. For all the county employees and all of staff, I know we're supposed to be doing the social distancing thing, but put your mask on and go down and say hi to Clay before he gets out of here. And, you know, again, an institution in this building, Mr. Black, that's what you are. And well done. Round of applause for Mr. Black, please. Congratulations, Clay. All right. We'll be seeing more of him as the days progress here. Anything else that anyone has for Priority Carroll? I will say to my colleagues, well, I'll tell you that in closed admin. We'll talk about that in closed admin. Okay. Anything else for Priority Carroll? All right, if not, we'll move into what is always our first item on the agenda, and that is updates on COVID and the pandemic. As far as, before we hear from Ed, as far as our activity that we've seen over the last week, we were hit kind of in between our sessions, if you will, with the ability for our restaurants to expand to 75% of their capacity, but knowing that that's 75% of the capacity based on other numbers. So in other words, it's not as easy as what it sounds, but it did allow them to increase. I was in contact with my colleagues because this was out of the usual way in which we do this, and all of us agreed that, as we have done with everything else that's come down the pike during this, that we would follow the governor's guidelines from his team to a T. And obviously, my colleagues agreed, and we moved on. And I don't know how many restaurants took advantage of that, but I think they probably will be doing so when they can safely. And as we, of course, I was going to say as we see the weather change, but I'm not so sure yesterday or today we're seeing the weather change, because yesterday was like 81 degrees outside. So it was a great night to go out and dine outside. So reminder to folks to continue to get out to our restaurants and support them while you can. And a lot of them are getting heaters. So I'm hopeful we can kind of do that all the way through October. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. So
Hey, Steve,
go ahead.
before Ed comes on, because you brought it up, we have been adhering to our governor's guidelines, his executive orders, to a T. I think it's by exception if we don't. So can we establish a rule in place that when a governor provides an executive order that gives us allowances, that it'll be an automatic, as opposed to you having or us having to collaborate? And if we can do that, I think it sends a very strong message to the community that we will continue to push forward. And, you know, of course, safety's first, but we will continue to push forward. I just think it's less clunky if we do it that way, if we're allowed.
I think we can do whatever we want, Ed, because I think we've given the opportunity as local leaders in each jurisdiction to make the decisions based on what we feel are best for our citizens. So why don't you go ahead and make that motion, and we'll just roll right along with it, and that'll be official.
So the motion would be that starting now, moving forward, we will adhere to our governor's executive orders in moving forward with, activities associated with COVID-19. and that's it. I mean, I'm not sure how else to put it. There's no reason for us to come together. We just want to keep going forward. So, Roberta, is there another 2 cents you want me to add, or Mr. Burke?
I think that about covers it. I mean, I think your hesitation is because in case the government maybe goes the other direction or gives us additional leeway, you may want, but you can always revisit the topic.
Correct.
So I think at the moment, if you just leave a blanket that you're going to follow the governor's orders as they come out for the citizens of Carroll County, then
Right.
I think fine, because you can always change it later.
Because, you know, in the paper, when the governor came out and said it, I think there were like 2 or 3 counties that said that they were adhering to it. Well, we were too, but, you know, it took us an extra day of staffing, and I don't believe we need to go through that extra day of staffing. So, I mean, that's, you know, where I'm coming from.
Second.
Okay, thanks.
I got a motion in 2 seconds. You didn't hear the other second, but I got it in here. Okay. Any other comments, Dick or Eric, on this
No,
particular topic? Hearing none, all those in favor, and Eric is giving a thumbs up too. So that's unanimous. So we will take that approach as we move forward. And thank you for that, Ed, because that kind of makes things a little bit easier, because we're always trying to go through the weeds of open meetings and making sure that, you know, the open meetings police aren't standing around the corner wanting to throw hand grenades at us. So that'll make things a lot easier. So I think we're good. So thank you. All right. Anything else on any federal or state things that we heard in the past week? Because I think we haven't heard much. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Ed Singer, our health director here, and let him roll with his presentation. And Ed, I had mentioned earlier that you were at the Board of Education meeting last night. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I know they discussed a few things. If you just want to touch on that a little bit, because I don't think Commissioner Frazier was there at some point
Right.
during your report, that would be great. Mr. Singer, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. And I'll hit the Board of Education piece last, and I didn't stay for the entire meeting. They kind of give me a little dispensation. We give them a window to have a discussion with the health department, and then we kind of pop out. But I kind of I do know what direction they're kind of headed, and some of the discussions we had last night, we can make a brief mention of that. I do want to mention, I know you all talked already about the expansion to 75% capacity. I've heard from a number of restaurant owners already, and really, I don't know that this makes a huge difference for anybody, because the requirements that their tables still be spaced by 6 feet, and they have a maximum of 6 people at a table, and that they can only use every other booth are still in place. I did see a newspaper article this morning that the Restaurant Association's pushing for to be able to use barriers as opposed to distancing. I don't know where that'll go, but realistically, in talking to most of the restaurant owners that I've spoken to in the last couple of days, they really don't think that they can get much more capacity in by going from 50 to 75%, because they physically can't space their tables any further apart and still fit things in there. So it's while it's a move in the right direction and whatnot, it really I think from what I'm hearing from the businesses, it's really got a minimal impact, unfortunately. One of the things I wanted to discuss briefly this morning is we're starting to see a lot of folks getting rapid antigen tests. And I wanted to talk briefly before I get into the statistical data about the PCR test. It's a viral DNA test that we do at our location, and it's available at a lot of the urgent cares and also at physicians' offices that can be done. It's kind of been the gold standard, and there's a lot more variability in the rapid antigen tests. And I think the thing that I want folks to know is when you go to get tested for COVID-19, some of the important things you need to keep in mind is that most employers, the school system, colleges, and things of that nature are not going to accept a negative antigen test as being a valid test to return you to work or school or whatnot. So really, I want to let the citizens know that you really ought to be looking for that PCR test. if you can get it. I'm not saying that the rapid antigen test isn't useful in helping your physician make decisions and things of that nature, but like I said, most schools, colleges, and employers will only accept a PCR test to return to work. The other issue is the state's not counting the rapid PCR test because of their variability as confirmed cases, although we are contact tracing these folks because they're considered to be presumptive positives. The Department of Health and CDC are recommending that if somebody gets a rapid antigen test, that they follow it up with a PCR test. So to me, it just makes common sense that you just get the PCR test to start with. And the other problem that we're running into, and we've worked this out with our urgent cares here in Carroll County, we've established kind of a new relationship we've established, but we've reached out to the urgent cares here in Carroll County to make sure that they're accurately reporting the antigen test. But some people are getting tested out of the county, and some of those urgent cares and some of the other jurisdictions are not reporting the results to us. So when we're hearing about some of these people who are testing positive, we don't already have the information, and it should be being reported electronically, but it's a little harder for us to reach out to these urgent cares that are not in our own jurisdiction and get them to do what they're supposed to be doing as far as reporting is concerned. So I'm going to hit the numbers real quick, and then I'll talk briefly about the discussion at the Board of Education last night. So just a quick update. Here's our community cases by week that we've routinely been reporting to you guys. You can see we kind of hit a peak the end of August. I don't know what caused that peak, that peak that we saw there, but we're trending down in the direction of metrics that the Board of Education has been using to look at to see if school reopening could be done safely. There's a number of things we're looking at. We talked about state metrics. CDC now has some metrics out there, and the metrics I had given the school system. Right now, those numbers don't lie within any of those metrics at this point, but they're trending in that direction. And this week, we're actually we're more than halfway through the week, and we've only had 16 confirmed cases. So let's hope that they continue to move in that direction. This is just the 14-day rolling trend that I share with you each time we talk about these metrics, and it kind of gives you a good view of the trends. And then deaths. Since I guess since late May, early June, the number of deaths we've seen in the community have been substantially lower than what they were at the peak of the pandemic. We did have a couple of facility-related deaths in the last week, but they still, the deaths that we're seeing here in Carroll County are rather sporadic. ICU bed usage, I think statewide, it's interesting. The cases seem to be down, and it may be that the ICU, that the hospital bed usage is lagging the cases, because we had a little bit of spike in cases, as you saw back with that previous slide, and we've seen a little bit of uptick in hospital usage in the state of Maryland. But I don't think this is a huge thing to be worried about. It's just I think that the bed usage in the hospital tend to lag the cases. Again, this slide that we've talked about each week, community cases by age group, still that 18 to 29-year-old age group is still where we're seeing a lot of these. And, I've talked a lot about how people in that age group like to be social and things of that nature. The other thing to keep in mind is this is your college age group as well. So going back to college could have some impact on the fact that we're seeing a lot of cases in this age group. And the other thing is a lot of these people tend to work in the service industries where they're going to have exposure to a lot of people, whether it's working in a store like Walmart or working in a restaurant or things of that nature where they could potentially have a lot of exposures, as well as that social interaction that this age group tends to have. The next slide is going to say questions, but I'm going to real quick just give you, I'm just going to go ahead and end the presentation. If you guys can help me there and your Tech City and just go ahead and end it for me and put me back up on the screen, that'd be great. I always have a problem finding the button. Thanks. Appreciate the technical assistance. So at the Board of Education meeting last night, we talked about various metrics, the CDC metrics, the governor's metrics that he's put out there, and that the metrics that I had given to them originally. And we kind of were comparing those and talking about those. I explained to the Board of Ed, this is kind of a balancing act. There's never going to be a no-risk situation, and we've got to figure out what's best for them as far as being able to provide education to the students, and what we think is a reasonable level of risk. I think the CDC guidance has a category where there's a moderate risk of transmission, and I think that if we're in that range when the schools are going back, that's reasonable. One thing I did caution them on, I'm a little concerned. I know there's a big push to try to get high school sports restarted, and anytime we start something new, we tend to see a spike in cases, and we have to kind of manage that and whatnot. And one of the things I'd be concerned about is if we wind up trying to do sports at the same time or before we try to go back to school, I kind of caution them against doing that. And I'm not, I know they were talking last night that there's going to be some more state guidance coming as far as what the MPSSAA is going to allow, and they want to move forward with that. But I am concerned that if we reopen schools and we reopen sports at the same time, it's going to make it very difficult to manage contact tracing and the potential cases that we would have and the quarantines we would have with both of those things happening at the same time and creating a little bit of a spike for us. Just as an example, I gave them, I said, when McDaniel came back, we had a lump of cases just because we were bringing the kids back to school and they were testing them all, and we had to manage those. And it's kind of gradually gotten better, and we've had fewer cases to manage and fewer quarantines to manage. There's always going to be some cases and some quarantines, but you have to get over that initial spike when you, I guess, essentially rip the Band-Aid off and start doing something new. So that's kind of where I see things. I know the school system's shooting for a reopening in mid-October. So we're going to hope that the trend keeps in the positive direction with what we're seeing with our numbers right now. I don't know of anything that the governor has planned to reopen or whatnot that would necessarily cause us to have a spike, but I didn't anticipate the spike we saw kind of in the late August, early September timeframe either. So we'll have to see where things go, but ultimately I think that's kind of where things lie at this point. So I'll take any questions you all have for me.
Hey, Ed, two quick questions. One, an update on flu vaccinations. Your thoughts on that as we're moving into the season. And then has there been any, I know there was CDC guidelines, I believe, but has there been any state guidelines regarding Halloween?
So the state hasn't put anything out. I've seen some really cool stuff out there. Just you look on the internet. Some people have, I think everything that I've seen, whether it's from CDC or whether it's from other professional organizations, has recommended trying to limit the trick-or-treating or trunk-or-treating. But there's some ideas out there about how you can socially distance and trick-or-treat. And some of those include things like, potentially just leaving candy out on the porch, and then you don't have to have that close interaction. And if you're going to go out, and if the kids are going to go out, and I realize it's a fun holiday for kids, and everybody's under a lot of stress and been locked in their in their bubbles for a period of time, is to try to stick to small groups and avoid the crowds as much as possible. I've actually seen one of the things I thought was really cool. Somebody created a thing where they had essentially kind of like a pipe with a skeleton on one end and something on the other end, and they just drop the candy down the pipe to the kids. And kind of think that people get creative and come up with ways. I just want people to keep in mind, as much as possible, social distancing, and if you can't keep 6 feet, to wear a mask. And I mean, you're going to wear a mask at Halloween, but wear a mask that that limits the spread of droplets, something that would be cloth from that standpoint, because we don't need to be unnecessarily spreading this more than we need to. Back to the flu piece. Most of we've reached out to the pharmacies, and Maggie Kuntz, our communications person, has been doing a lot of messaging, and we've been working closely with the hospital and other providers. And I think the flu vaccine is going to really still be available through routine means that we've been able to get it out to people during the year. The school system's doing a flu vaccine for school-age kids that we've partnered with them and the Maryland Partnership for Prevention so that we can make that available to students. And I know they've got the messaging out to all the parents and all about when those are going to be happening at certain schools. And we basically use our emergency pod type operation to provide those vaccinations. And I think Maggie's messaging me, probably trying to tell me a date. So the schools and the senior centers are actually drive-through clinics. That's what she's trying to tell me while I'm on here. So, the message though is important, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner, is that it's really important to get your flu shot this year. While no flu shots are 100% effective, it does decrease your chance of getting the flu, and it'll cause us less confusion in trying to sort out what's COVID and what's the flu, and we don't want to have people unnecessarily in quarantine or isolation because they have the flu and it's COVID related symptoms, and then we have to rule out COVID. So, and it's not impossible for people to get both of those infections at the same time. I think it's rare, but we did see last year as flu season was ending and this COVID was starting, that there were some people who got both of the things at the same time. So just because somebody gets the flu doesn't necessarily mean they can't have COVID as well. So it's very important. Get your flu shot, wash your hands, all those things. And they're actually, I've seen a couple of studies, and I haven't seen anything that's peer reviewed, but there seem to be some studies from the Southern Hemisphere that because people are wearing face coverings in places in the Southern Hemisphere, that the incidence of flu is also seem to be decreasing. Then if people want to get more information, they can go to our website. We've got information about flus and flu clinics there, and we'd be glad to have them take a look at that information. Anything else, commissioners?
So I think our citizen services is doing a drive-through flu clinics as well at some of our senior centers. So I think that's up. I'm not sure. We'll have Celine, or I think it's on there. There's Celine's on here. While we're on that topic, Celine, you guys are doing that, right?
Right. We are going to have a drive-through flu clinic at each one of our senior centers. It's going to be the week of October 5th through October 9th. And I can push out that flyer over to our IT folks in the control room if they want to post it up so that you can put that up for people. But we are going to be doing that one day for each center, and it will be drive-through.
Okay. Yeah. Chris is nodding his head. He'll have that, and then he'll push it out. So that's good. Thank you, Celine. Any other questions for Ed on any of this information? Just real quick for me, Ed, did we get any updates on the guidelines for visitation at our long-term care facilities or nursing? Wasn't there going to be something from MDH about that? I know each of them are doing their own thing, kind of, but are we getting any guidelines on that?
Well, the guidelines that were out there before were very restrictive. And I know I've heard from a number of folks, including the delegation and people in the community that were concerned about how restrictive the guidelines were from MDH. CMS put out some new guidance, and MDH was supposed to be getting something out either yesterday or today on that. And I have not yet seen it, but it's essentially kind of like you guys are following the governor's guidelines when he publishes new stuff. I think the MDH guidance will hopefully point back to that CMS guidelines, which try to essentially open things up a little bit more for people in the nursing homes for visitation. I know that's been a huge problem, and I've got some personal friends that I know that are disabled and whatnot that are in nursing homes, and they've been essentially in isolation for since January timeframe, and it's weighing very heavy on them. So I think it's a very important thing. It's not something, everybody looks at the health department. We as a local health department do not regulate the nursing homes, and they're regulated at the state level by the Office of Healthcare Quality, and the federal level by CMS and Medicaid in a lot of ways. We have provided some assistance and guidance to the nursing homes during this pandemic, but that's the authority with those primarily lies at the state level, and we're just trying to make sure that people have the information and we can try to help facilitate moving things forward there. So yes, we are expecting this to change, and we are expecting people to be able to begin more visitation in nursing facilities as long as it can be done. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of rules like there is every place else, and the visits aren't going to look like what they used to. You're only going to be able to go visit the person, and then you're expected to directly leave as opposed to wandering around through the facility, and face masks will be required and that type of thing. But we really are trying to get back to where the folks in the nursing home can get back to a little bit more normal life as well.
Okay. I appreciate that. And Ed and Dick, I didn't know if you had heard that from the Veterans Advisory Group or not, but I've heard from a couple folks that they have veterans in some of our long-term care facilities, and they're unable to get into there to at least pay tribute to them. We're going to have Veterans Day coming up in the not too distant future here, and I think it's important that we try to at least do something there. So that's why I'm asking. And maybe on another note, I'm going to have a personal issue with that probably coming up as well soon. So I was just curious. Last question I have, Ed. I know, and listen, I appreciate all that the school system is doing in trying to get back. I've heard a debate lately about whether it's 3 feet distancing, whether it's 6 feet distancing. I heard you say last night that you're encouraging school systems to go by that 6 feet. I've got several folks in my family, it's no mystery, that are involved in the school system. And I think that there's been some, because the classrooms aren't big enough, that maybe they're kind of pushing that a little bit. Are we staying with 6? Is that what you're saying, Ed, on that?
So the requirement is both in the state guidance and the requirement's clear as mud, both in the state guidance and the CDC guidance. And that is, what it says in those guidance, 6 feet as much as can practically be done. And, so, I mean, you gotta try to keep the 6 feet as much as we can. And from what the feedback I've gotten from the school system is they said, well, there's going to be some places where we can't get exactly 6 feet, but I'm not aware that they're going 3 feet anywhere. And I guess right now what we've got planned is the school system had asked if we could come out. I'm going to planning to take our PA with me, one of our environmental health folks, and me to go out and visit a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school to look at how these are set up and see if we have any recommendations or thoughts on what they're trying to do, and whether we have any concerns about it. So we are going to go out, we're going to take a look at it, see what it looks like on the ground, and make sure that, it at least meets what the intent of these requirements are. And I realize we're not going to, this isn't a perfect world. The 6 feet's not a perfect necessarily solution anyway. It does help us with, considering whether we have to quarantine people or not. If we can keep them 6 feet apart, that helps us a lot. But we're not going to get 6 feet between every desk. But I expect the school system and what they've told me so far is that they can get pretty close. We're certainly not having 3 feet between every desk is going to be something that's really acceptable. We've got to take a look at what they've got set up and make sure that we think that it meets the intent. But I know in talking to the superintendent and his staff, at least they've led me to believe that they're getting the 6 foot distance as much as they possibly can. And in many classrooms, they're going to be able to meet it, but there's some classrooms where it's going to be close, but they're not going to be able to get exactly 6 feet. So we'll take a look at that, and we're going to give them advice. And this keeps coming back to the same thing. Everybody wants everything to be 100% safe, or everybody wants things to be 100% open. And we've really got to, it's a balancing act. We've got to figure out how to make it work best with everything that we've got going on. And we're gonna work with the school system to come up with the best solution and try to make it as safe as possible. It's all about mitigation, and there's no such thing as a risk-free environment, but we want to mitigate. One of the things that CDC put in there were 5 specific things that they wanted school systems to try to do to mitigate risk as things go back, and I think we're trying to do all of them. And one of those that's specifically mentioned is the 6-foot distancing, and it says 6-foot distancing as much as is practically possible. So it's not going to be possible in every situation, but we're going to do the best we can to make sure we can meet that in as many places as possible.
Okay, and that's just not for there. I mean, it's for here too. We got to make sure that we're adhering to that as well. I just wanted to make sure that 6 feet thing was still the considered distance that we need to try to do here. So, okay. Ed, Eric, Dick, any questions for Ed Singer? All right. Hearing
Thanks,
none.
Commissioners.
Yep. Take care, Ed.
You all have a good day.
All right. All right. With that, we will move into our COVID relief fund plan and all things associated with that. And I'll turn that over to County Administrator Roberta Wyndham. Good morning.
Good morning again. Thank you very much. Nothing much to update today. In general, the plan remains the same. There's changes to it. And so last week, the board had requested an update from Jeff Castonway with regard to all things building construction and DPW. So he's here, as well as Jack Wyburn, to give the weekly update on the Carroll Rebound Plan. So both here, I'll turn it over to Jack first, and you can hear about Carroll Rebound, and then we'll ask Mr. Castonway.
Roberta, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. We had a busy week last week. We had 30 businesses apply, 6 nonprofits, and Commissioner Weaver, thank you. We had 44 farms apply. Right now, our total is 479 total grants we awarded, 448 business and farms, and 31 nonprofits, to the total of $2,491,000. So we're about $2.5 million right now. So we had 12 last night apply. I don't know the breakdown yet. So we have another week to go on 9/30. But if he keeps this up, we're gonna be pretty close to our $3 million. So we're excited about that, and we're excited about the farms coming in. So Commissioner Weavers, thank you for helping me with that, and Diana. The restaurants are, we're not seeing any new restaurants. Our restaurants, we've given out about $550,000 in restaurants. And then our farms, though, it's been spiking. There's about $335,000 on farms. And the rest of it is our business. We did take it out, half a page out in the paper in Carroll County Times. We called all our business partners, we sent out releases to all the chambers of commerces last week, and we're continuing to do that. So we're putting a big push on this week on the rebound program, and hopefully, we'll get a same record number that we had last week, and hopefully a little bit more. Any questions about rebound? I have another program I want to talk to you about, but any questions about the rebound?
Thank you, Jack, for what you've been doing. I know I've sent a lot of people to you. I hope it works.
Commissioner, it's been working. It's interesting to read about all the farms. Thank you.
All right, Jack, you can roll right into the next one if you like. I'm not getting any questions from my colleagues, so go ahead.
What we like to do at the Farm Museum is we want to do free admission on Fridays on the every Friday. We want to open it up like we're doing right now, the outside tours, play on the playgrounds, or bring your own picnic lunch. We still want to do, we ran all this by, Ed Singer, and he has approved this, but we want to do something new on Friday Night Bites, it's called. On October the 9th, 16, 23, and 30, to have 3 to 6:30, it'd be after school. We would have a couple food trucks there. So families are in a rush, they could come and pick up dinner. We would still give the outside tours, and we would have the playground open. And then on the 30th, we would have people driving by. We would give free pumpkins for children under 12. They can come in costume if they want, but they don't have to. But that would be a free Friday also. Like I said, we ran it by Ed Singer, and we thought we could get more people in the farm museum, social discipline, and also we won't have any large groups. Just wanted to kind of give you an update, and if you had any comments about this, but we're kind of excited about, opening up the farm museum, to more of the public,
Yeah,
especially for the children.
Personally, I think it's a great idea. Any opportunity we can continue to highlight, the farm museum, I guess, and the food trucks seem to be really working, at the fire stations, at all the different places. Food trucks seem to be the in thing to do to getting meals on, and moving away. Can we use any CARES Act funding for these type of activities? Was the farm museum, really challenged on the during this pandemic, and can we use it for advertisement or for I don't know. I know the food trucks are eligible, and you told me that, for CARES Act funding, so we want to make sure that they're aware of it. But is there any CARES Act funding that we can use for this, or would this be coming out of our budget?
Well, it won't be coming out of our budget, and we're not applying for the CARES Act funding, but we are getting sponsors for this, so it won't be. We're big on getting sponsors for everything we do, under the umbrella of economic development, including the farm museum. So we're going to have sponsors for the pumpkins and for everything else, and we will charge a fee to the food trucks. So hopefully we'll make a couple dollars here, but that's not our criteria. Our criteria is to get the children out here and the families out here. But we're out now trying to get sponsors, and I think we're going to be successful. As far as the lost income at the farm museum, we ran it by Debbie and Roberta, and it just doesn't fall under the scenario. But this program won't be any out of pocket for the county. The sponsors will, pay for it.
No, and I appreciate it. And the sponsors, it's a great idea. But even with the sponsors, using CARE funds for the sponsors for additional marketing, whether it's banners or something. Don't know if that's doable or if it's, not worth the squeeze, but, I appreciate sponsors, but I know that funding can be used for their marketing. So if we put banners out there that they're sponsoring, it may also entice them to sponsor. I don't know. Just thinking through this a little bit, but bottom line, and I'll stop talking, great idea.
Well, we'll check with Debbie and Roberta, and we're anytime we can squeeze money out of the CARES fund, we're right there for it. We'll run it by them, but we're always looking for the squeeze. Thank you for your comment.
All right, any other questions for Jack from Eric, Dick? Any other things for? Yep, Eric's coming in here with one. Go ahead.
Mr. Lyburn, if an adult shows up dressed as Chippy the Chipmunk, can he get a free pumpkin?
That's a question. I don't know. We have to run that by the committee. Is that going to be your costume? I mean,
I appreciate everything. I think these are very good, innovative ideas that brings together that sense of community and getting people out. So I commend you and your staff at the Farm Museum. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for Jack? All right, keep up the good work down there, Jack. Carol Rebound,
Thank
his
you.
deadline is September the 30th, which is next Monday, Tuesday, Monday? I don't know, Tuesday, whatever.
Wednesday.
I was close. I was this close.
This is,
Next week.
keep going.
Okay. There. Oh, yeah, it's Wednesday. Okay, thank you. All right, Roberta, who's next? You got Jeff coming up?
Jack, Jeff Castingway, if you'll update the commissioners on where we stand with the various building construction projects, please. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. So commissioners, as you know, we've been working close with the architects and engineers to ensure that we're constructing safe areas to provide proper separation for our staff in their work environments, staff and citizens and visitors alike. One of the biggest challenges that we're faced is revolve around HVAC airflow. Which we'll continue to work on. We need to provide proper flow of fresh air without pushing large amounts of air volume across areas that carry vapors. Our engineers have been working hard with building construction to staff, or building construction staff to order long lead items and to ensure that we meet the deadlines before the CARES funding runs out. As I go to explain these projects, I just wanted to let you know is our building construction staff has built into our schedules some additional time into each of the schedules to allow for any of the unknowns that we may encounter as the renovation process continues. First of all, I'll start with our secondary emergency communication center. As you know, that project is a 1,700 square foot renovation. We have plans that are in to submit for permits on 9/30, which will be next Wednesday. Commissioner Williams. Construction estimate. The construction estimates should be completed by the 14th of October. We'll come to you in front of the board or be on the 15th for concurrence for the award of the contract and a notice to proceed on the 19th of October to start construction. And we hope with use and occupancy by the 18th of December for that work to be complete. That will provide us a large amount of space in order to get the proper separation of all the 911 workstations that are going to be required, as this staff does work 12-hour shifts and spend a lot of close time together. As a result of that project, we had to move multiple staff members out of the county office building into another facility, and that requires us to build out a current open space into some offices, and that's going to be in front of the board on the 8th of October. Bid award, notice to proceed on the 12th of October, and use and occupancy by the 18th of November is our goal. Last one is the entranceway to the county office building. As you know, currently citizens must enter in the building and cross or stand next to each other as people are entering and exiting. We have no way to properly separate the inbound and outbound flow in a healthy and safe manner. The renovation will change the flow of inbound and outbound foot traffic, touchless doors, addition of additional temperature badge and bill paying kiosks, and changing the airflow patterns to prevent spread of vapors. We're anticipating that the current main entrance of the building will move to the lower hearing room entrance, 003, or as a lot of people know it as Reagan Room, during the week of October 19th. This will be a 2-month relocation to allow the demolition of the current infrastructure and reconstruction to happen in a manner that is safe for both staff and the public. Planned bill payment and permits area. The planned bill payment and permit area drop off that we currently have at the main entrance will be relocated to that same entrance down there at 003 or by the public hearing room. The sheriff and information staff personnel will be set up in the lower level to assist citizens as they come in for the meetings. We plan on to be in front of the board on the 15th of October for concurrence of the award of contract for that project. Notice to proceed on the 19th of October, and use and occupancy no later than December 18th. We do have some long lead items that have already been ordered. by staff and between 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. So that's already been in place. So that should help move up the construction date. Signage will also be put out, and we will have public information or public press releases about the closing and relocation of our entrance. We'll start probably within the next week in going out on a weekly basis to let the public know of the changes that will be happening at the building with plenty of signage to direct everybody to that area, in relocation of some parking spaces, to open up some visitor parking areas on the side of the building that's not there now. The last project is our UV lighting for the HVAC systems. The contractor walkthrough was completed a couple days ago. The materials are on order. There's about an 8-week delivery time. Right now, in October, the month of October, that contractor is going to come in, clean all the coils, add any electrical connections that are needed, and perform any work that they possibly can get completed before the delivery of those UV systems. November 3rd is the estimated installation start date. The phase 2 UV systems, which would be the college, senior centers, libraries, those UV systems have been ordered, and the next will be getting the contractor on board and coming to you for concurrence for the contractor to perform that work. The goal is to have the same contractor do the work as doing phase 1, but if staffing concerns or timelines seem like they're not going to be met, we may have to go to another source. And that's it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
Questions for Jeff? Must be doing a good job, Jeff. That's all I got to say. I don't know. Nobody's got any questions, so.
Hey, I'll take it.
All right.
Thanks. No, but if anybody, and same thing, if anybody has any questions on this, reach out anytime.
Yeah. We know where you work. I will say this. I was loitering in the lobby a day or two ago and watching the coming and goings of our citizens as they need to get in for appointment only. And by the way, we are still appointment only. But whoever found that pad that automatically takes your temperature that's on that pedestal, that was priceless. That piece of equipment right there is worth its weight in gold. It even tells you to take your mask off or tells you to put your mask on. It reminds, it's a very interesting device. So kudos to you guys when it comes to that kind of stuff, to the UV lighting, everything that you're doing here. I got to tell you, you are on top of this, unlike any jurisdiction in the state. And I just want to make it a point that our citizens are very safe when they come into this building, by appointment only, but when they come in, they're very safe. So well done to you guys. Keep up the good work. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay, Roberta, what else do you have?
That was it. Nothing else. As I said, nothing's really changing in the plan at this point. Once rebound is over, staff is assessing where we stand all the time. That we'll have a better idea of where we stand in terms of what we've spent so far in the next few weeks, and we'll be back to the board with recommendations on some changes to the plan in light of where we stand.
Okay. All right, we're having some interesting technical difficulties with some of the slowness, so bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through this. So I would be remiss if I didn't also say that our sheriff deputies that are on duty in our lobby are doing an amazing job as well. They are up out of their chairs immediately when somebody comes to the door. So we got it together here, folks. We're doing a good job. Latest before we get off of COVID, I just got this from the state of Maryland. 7-day positivity rate drops to a record low 2.57%. That's Maryland. That's the average positive. That's the lowest level reported since the pandemic began. So that's good news. The case rate, Maryland's case rate, is now at 8.1 out of 100,000 today. That's the lowest that it's been since July 11th. Positivity rate below 5% in 23 of 24 jurisdictions, below 3.5% in 18 jurisdictions. That's good news. 349 total current hospitalizations, including 268 acute beds and 81 ICU beds. And the weekly unemployment claims are at an all new low. They are at 9,185 today, which is the lowest number of weekly claims since March the 14th. So the state is doing well. We're doing well. And I'm a glass half full, half empty kind of guy. And the reason we're doing well is because all of you, our citizens, are wearing these, you're distancing, and you're washing your hands. I'm not going to keep going on that. Enough said. So that's all I think we have for COVID. Anything else on from my colleagues? Okay. We're going to move on. Thank you. Next up is approval to, nope, I skipped ahead, sorry. Public hearing on the CDBG Community Development Block Grant COVID Round 2. And I believe Celine is on here. Celine, good morning, and so is Deb Standiford. So I'll turn it over to you, Celine. And of course, we're having a public hearing, so we got that guy named Tim Burke is on here too. Or he might be, or he is, or I don't know.
Yes.
There he is.
There he is. There he is. So Tim, as always with a public hearing, I'll give it to you first, and then we'll turn it over. So Mr. Burke, good morning.
Good morning, commissioners and our vast viewing audience. Today we're having a virtual public hearing, the sole purpose of which is to notify the public of the county's intent to apply for a community development block grant round 2 funding, and we want to accept public comment. We have a phone line and some link set up if people had intended to make public comment today. I note that the hearing was advertised in the Carroll County Times on September 18, 2020. With us, as you stated, Commissioner Wentz, Deb Standiford, our grants manager, and Celine Steckel, our director of Department of Citizen Services. And they are going to give you a short summary of what we hope to accomplish today.
Okay, and good morning again, folks. We wanted to let you know a little bit about our intent for this application. And as the Director of Citizen Services, I represent the county for services for housing and community connections, the local management board for families and children, aging and disabilities, and also veteran services. Under this CDBG grant, it's under the CARES Act, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development has released over $16 million in CDBG funding for non-entitlement and entitlement communities, and later released an additional $5.2 million to be distributed through the same application process for non-entitlement jurisdictions only, which Carroll County falls into. Only applications from county governments will be eligible for this funding. The county is preparing an application for the Department of Citizen Services to meet the national objective, which is to benefit low to moderate income persons. Activities for this round of funding have been limited to eviction prevention only and must be implemented in response to the loss of income due to COVID-19. The county government has the managerial and fiscal capacity to administer this program and will not be using a sub-grantee for this round of funding. The county will continue, though, to partner with Human Services Programs of Carroll County for referrals and eligibility screenings. I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact that COVID-19 has had on our community, as well as the state in general. The economic impact that COVID-19 has affected renters across Maryland in a way that we have never experienced. We are seeing people from across the state, and especially in Carroll County, that we have not seen before coming in and seeking assistance. The National Low Income Housing Coalition has produced estimates of rental assistance needs due to COVID throughout the state. Currently, they estimate over 223,000 renters in Maryland will need assistance. If you extrapolate Carroll's data, the need that is based on the number of renters in Carroll County relative to the state, we estimate that there are around 3,128 renters, or 2% of the population, that currently need rental assistance. The county and Human Services Program Incorporated, which is our Community Action Council, have a very strong working relationship with county landlords and are involved with the County Landlord Association. In July, when the initial eviction moratorium was coming to an end, the HSP surveyed the County Landlord Association on the need for rental assistance of their tenants that were impacted by COVID-19. Of the 122 respondents, over 50% of them reported having tenants who owed more than $4,000 in arrears to them, and that total of rental arrears came to $483,000. It is important to note that this survey that we had done only represented 122 renters, which is a tiny fraction of our county's renters. The 2018 American Community Survey data shows that of the 60,450 housing units in Carroll, 16% of those are rentals, or 9,919 households. The survey of landlords only captured the need of 112 renters, or just 1%, 122 renters rather, just 1% of the county's rental households. And that 1% had a need for almost $500,000 in assistance. So initially we had come before the Board of County Commissioners for funding for rental arrears from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And we were granted that $500,000. We have started that program on September 1st. And of that program already, we have seen a need for over $180,000 to be dispersed between that time and now. So to address this, we understand there's additional need, that will go far beyond that initial $500,000. So to address this, we have identified populations and conducted outreach with our other community partners who administer eviction prevention programs. And through our outreach, the county has identified additional eviction prevention needs. And we're proposing administering an eviction prevention program with an additional $550,000 of this CDBG COVID Round 2 program funding that would also include hiring a contractual housing stability coordinator. We would like to also point out that what we would accomplish with this additional funding would be to prevent 125 households from being evicted from rental units in Carroll County. It would assist landlords who have potentially been operating their businesses without rent for the past up to 9 months. And it would also prevent eviction during a pandemic that would reduce the spread of disease, as evicted households have no choice but to double up with family or friends or enter a homeless shelter. It would also prevent evictions and provide stability in a less costly and less traumatic way, and allow than it would be if we had to restore someone who had just lost their housing. So with that, I would also state that we are going to be posting a copy of our application on our county website beginning on 5 p.m. On the 25th of September, so that if people would like to review the application, they have the ability to do that. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Debbie if she has any additional comments to add.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse either. No, I'm fine. I think that covered both what we think the need is, and it's a reasonable request from CDBG. I think our need will be greater than that, but we need to keep the request reasonable to the state. If they have funds in the back end, we may be able to ask for additional funding if we have a greater need.
Celine, you mentioned rental assistance for residents and small businesses. I wasn't aware of that. This is also supporting small business? No, it's not supporting small business? The guy just not hear you correctly.
No, it's just residences.
Say that again?
It's just for renters. It's not for small businesses. This is just for individuals.
Okay, renters, residential renters.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
And Commissioner, they also have to meet income eligibility. So we're following HUD guidelines for moderate, up to 80% of our median income, but which is really broader than what we usually do with rental assistance. Usually we just assist very low income folks with this. So it is broadening that to other folks in the jurisdiction.
All right, any other questions
commissioners
for
have-
Celine? Oh, wait a minute. Before we get to a public hearing or to the public part of, any other questions for Celine or Deb? All right, Mr. Burke.
Commissioners, this is a virtual public hearing. I don't believe we have any virtual participants here to comment on the proposal. So, Mr. President, it's appropriate to close the public hearing at this time.
I'll motion we
All right, I'll make that.
close the public hearing. I'm sorry, Steve, and leave the record
Go ahead,
open
Ed.
until
Got it.
9:30:20.
I didn't hear him. Say that again, Ed. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I'm not sure if
Our
mine-
feeds here are really kind of wonky right now, so we're working on it. Go ahead. Try that again, Ed.
Okay, I'll move that the Board of Commissioners close the public hearing and leave the record open till September 30th, 2020.
Eric seconded. Okay. Commissioner Boucher seconded that. Any other thoughts on this? All right. Public hearing is closed and open until, that was unanimous decision to close the public hearing, by the way, and leave it open until September the 30th. Anything else on this, Celine, before we move to the application part of it?
No, I don't have anything more at this point unless you had further questions.
Okay. Hearing nothing, let's move to that. Requesting approval to submit the application and accept the award for the CDBG grant. So I don't guess there's a whole lot to say here, Celine, other than procedurally, right?
Correct. So obviously I just reviewed most of the detail of the grant, and now we are here formally to ask for the approval to make application and accept the award for the Community Development Block Grant COVID Round 2. As you know, the CDBG is providing this funding assistance. This is the round 2 we have spoken in public session before with you about that we were waiting for. We were not sure initially that they were going to earmark this for one specific purpose or for multiple activities, but as we have noted, it is only for eviction prevention for this round. And we feel that we have the capacity as the county and citizen services to administer this funding. This funding would allow for 6 consecutive months of rental assistance for the current month and the arrears. It would help low and moderate income county citizens who are having difficulty paying their rent due to COVID-related loss of income, which is very important. It has to be COVID-related, and it would allow them to stay housed. And what we are seeking is an additional $500,000 for eviction prevention, and then $50,000 of administrative funding for oversight of the grant, and then a housing stability position. There is no required county match for this funding. So the total grant request that we would be going before them would be for $550,000. And Debbie, did you have any additional information you wanted to share?
No, thanks.
Okay. Eric's itching over here. You're on, Eric, even though you can't see yourself. You're
Thank you,
on.
Commissioner. I want to do the motion for this, but real quick, I remembered I got a technical question for Mrs. Steckel. I had a phone call last night about a landlord who had a tenant pass away, and the tenant had applied for this assistance. And now the landlord is not sure whether the back rent will be compensated or not. And I had instructed them to contact your office because I think that has to do with the language of the law. But I think that's something that maybe your staff can look into, because with elderly citizens receiving assistance and some landlords have these as tenants, how this comes into play. And I want to make sure that the landlords have a clarification that if a tenant passes away, whether or not the back rents will be covered or not, because I think it gets a little complicated. But if someone can look into that, I'd appreciate it, and keep the landlords posted. And with that, I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the application submission and award acceptance for the Community Development Block Grant COVID Round 2.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and second on that. And Celine, you'll handle that request from Commissioner Boucher, correct?
We will, and just so you're aware, Commissioner, we have already been in touch with that landlord. And just for clarification for the public, these funds are for the tenants, even though the allocation is paid directly to the landlord through the program. They are tied to the tenant. So if the tenant passes away, that allocation would not be able to be granted for that landlord at that point. So, but we have been in touch with this individual landlord regarding this. So thank you for the referral.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a motion and second on this CDBG grant application and award acceptance. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Celine, thank you. Deb, thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Moving forward here, we're going to have a briefing on an annexation in Manchester, annexation number 39, actually, of the Lippy property. Having trouble here this morning. So with that, I'll turn it over to Linda Eisenberg and her team, and she'll introduce those as they come on board. Linda, good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. If you're okay with me keeping my camera, I keep having glitches too, saying that I don't have enough bandwidth. So if you're okay with that, I'm just going to be verbal. And Claire Stewart, our planner in the department, will also be presenting the Lippy annexation. So this is Manchester annexation number 39, the Lippy property. Today we're here before you to brief you on the annexation and the zoning waiver. This was heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 15th, and they are forwarding you a favorable recommendation for both the annexation and the zoning waiver. Today is just an informational briefing, and we'll come back before you to request a letter of comment be sent to the town, as we always do, as well as an official action of the zoning waiver by the board. So with that, I'm going to have Claire present to you the annexation. Claire.
Good morning, commissioners. Chris, do I have the ability to screen share?
Yep. You've been given you're the presenter.
Okay.
Just like planning and zoning.
Can you see my screen right now?
No, just go to screen and share your screen. It's on the bottom.
Gotcha, okay. All right, how about now?
We got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me enlarge it. Okay. So, good morning. As Linda said, I am here to brief you on Manchester's annexation number 35. This is also known as the Lippy property. So on August 5th, we received a request to comment prior to the town council's scheduled public hearing, and that is scheduled for October 13th. So this request is for a little under 26 acres of a 35-acre parcel, and it is owned by Woodhaven Building and Development Incorporated. So the request for the annexation is outlined in blue. We're located off of Route 30 as part of an unincorporated enclave. The corporate limits are outlined in red and are hatched. So this small portion that is not hatched is unincorporated, along with some area to the south here. Parcel 35 extends out to this dashed line. As I said before, this is a 35-acre parcel. These 9 acres were incorporated as part of Manchester's annexation 1 and 3. So the petitioner also owns this lot directly to the, or this undeveloped land directly to the south here, known as Old Town. This is a plat of 40 lots from 1978. There's one residential dwelling unit on the property with access from Route 30. And then here is Southwestern Avenue. It's an alternative access point to the property located towards the west. Across Route 30, we have Manchester Valley High School. To the north, we have an auto body shop and then St. Bartholomew's Church. There's undeveloped land to the north, south, and west, surrounded by residential. And then to the southwest here is Grace Bible Church. So the county zoning, we have 18.5 acres of R10,000, about 5.5 acres of conservation zoning, and then 1.5 acres of B2 commercial medium zoning. The town proposes about 24.5 acres of residential 20,000. So that would overlay the county's R10,000 and conservation. So everything that you see in orange and green. And then 1.5 acres of their business local zoning, which would overlay our commercial medium zoning. And because the R20,000 proposed zoning is more dense than the conservation zoning, it's about 6 times more denser, a zoning waiver has been requested by the petitioner. So we are located within the town's municipal growth area, and the property has a future land use of medium density residential in the Manchester Comp Plan. We requested review and comment from these agencies. We did receive 2 comments from the Department of Transportation, SHA, and then the Maryland Department of Planning. So SHA commented that access to and from the annexation site or improvements to Route 30 as a result of development will require an SHA access permit, and any development constructed prior to an access permit should be accessed through the local roadway network. And the town is aware and has received a copy of these comments. And MDP staff noted the inconsistency with the town's proposed R20,000 zoning and the county's conservation zoning, and recommended that the town seek a zoning waiver from the county commissioners. They also noted that the proposed annexation area is within the county certified priority funding area and is eligible to retain that PFA designation in the municipality. So as Linda said, at their September 15th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to send a favorable recommendation of the annexation and zoning waiver to the county commissioners. And before we move forward, I want to address any questions that you have.
And also clarify, May, there are representatives from the town of Manchester here today, Michelle Wilder.
Yeah.
And Jim.
Claire, very, very good briefing. For the good of the group and those that could be listening, when you refer to R10,000, R20,000, medium density residential, can you be a little bit more specific on what that actually entails?
Sure. So the R10,000, R20,000, the R20,000 is roughly 2 units per acre. The R10,000 is roughly 4 units per acre. Residential dwelling units.
Does it also allow for clustering of homes to be put into those R20,000, R10,000 areas?
Michelle Wilder is on the line with the town, because that will be under the town zoning code. She could probably answer that for you.
Okay, because, yeah, and I would appreciate that, because again, for the good of the audience and for good of us, is R10,000, R20,000, the units per acre are not necessarily the end of the day situation, because clustering can be potentially available. So yeah, if we can get that, that'd be good.
Sure. Michelle, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't get the camera working, but I can talk. The town of Manchester does allow for clustering if the applicant can provide open space in exchange for the ability to cluster, but it does not allow them to increase the number of units that they could have gotten with a regular layout, if that makes any sense. Did that answer your question?
Ed?
Yeah, if you can say it one more time, because it sounds like almost that you said that clustering is not available. At first you said it was, but I guess say it one more time.
Okay.
To be clear.
Clustering is available if the applicant can provide a certain percentage of open usable space in place, in lieu of them clustering. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission has to approve the cluster, and it does not increase the density of the development in units.
Okay, no, and I understand that now for the good of the group. Since I threw out the term clustering, can you define what clustering means and what it would mean in this situation?
Clustering means that you take the number of developed units that you can do on that property, and you can move them closer together and change the zoning from half acre to a little smaller to make infrastructure costs less, as long as you can provide something in return for that back to us.
Okay, thanks.
So,
The only
Bob-
question in this,
Go ahead, Dick. Go ahead.
the only question in this thing, what about traffic and access to Route 30? I mean, dumping, 40 more cars onto there, it's a kind of a mess in that area due to the high school anyway. Has that been considered by the town?
Yes, that was some of our comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the council. And I'm sure that will be something discussed during the public hearings. One of the comments that the Planning Commission did request or kind of suggest that they insist upon is if there was to be any connection to 30, we'd like to see it somehow come into the same intersection as Maple Grove Road so that we could eliminate another access spot on 30 without a light.
That answer your question, Dick? Okay. Bottom line, what's the potential for the number of units that are going into this area?
Michelle, did you want to go ahead and answer that for them?
Sure. At this time, the applicant is requesting 40 residents in that parcel combined with the Old Town parcel. They want to combine them all due to a lot of environmental restrictions on those properties. And I believe his max requested is 40.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of why I asked the question, because isn't there a stream or something on that property?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Seems like a lot for that, but okay. I'm sure Planning and Zoning probably vetted all these answers already, right?
Yeah, they have this, they put it together in their comments to send to the mayor and council.
Okay. And infrastructure wise, the town is okay, I would assume. I mean, back to Dick's question, increase of traffic, law enforcement, fire, EMS, all of that, you guys are good with 40 more units in there?
There was, in our annexation plan, it is discussed in there that there's possibility that we would need to increase an officer. I did get comments from fire. And like I said, this has all not really been discussed with the council yet until that public hearing. And I'm not sure whether they're truly in favor of this or not. I can't speak for them.
Okay. All right. Well, knowing you guys in Manchester like I do, Michelle, I know you guys are all over all those because that knowing who the folks are here, I know you're making sure that those important issues are being discussed. So picturing it in my mind of putting 40 more units there, and maybe that's kind of where Commissioner Weaver was going with his question, seems to be a lot because that's a lot of traffic and a lot of need there. That's all. That's why I'm asking these questions. So.
Yes, traffic is definitely one of the main concerns.
Okay. All right. And Claire, do you have anything else? I mean, today's just a briefing.
Right.
Gives us a chance to kind of absorb this, and then you'll be back before us at some point, I know. So.
Yes, October 1st, we're scheduled for discussion and decision, and hopefully we'll send out a comment letter to the town.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Does the town, Claire, get the questions that we just asked today?
They do not. We can incorporate them into the comment letter. The comment letter is typically any comments that we receive. So it would include SHA's comments on access to and from Route 30. It'll include the zoning waiver. But if there are concerns about infrastructure, we can include any additional comments.
Yeah, I'm seeing nodding from my colleagues that I think it's important to include our questions because, Dick had an excellent question on the traffic, and I'm concerned about fire EMS and law enforcement and what the impact will be on that. So if you could include those as part of our discussions, so that, of course, Michelle's on here, she hears it, but just include that so it's kind of official on the record. I think that would be the best way to go here.
Of course.
So we'll draft a comment letter up for your review prior to the meeting next week. When we come back for that comment letter and zoning request.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Claire?
That's it today. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on, Michelle. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move forward now with a budget discussion, and we're going to bring in Ted to talk about this. And I suppose this is precipitated by the fact that all of us had decided that at some point in the September, October-ish area, Eric, right?
Yes, sir.
We were going to revisit to maybe revisit. Is that the right? I mean, we were going to revisit maybe. But before I mean, that's part of this discussion, obviously. But included in this, we wanted to get an update on where we were with the budget too. So, Ted, I'm going to turn this over to you for the briefing here. So, good morning.
Third green button down. Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my screen up.
And then click on that share.
Okay, all right, enough of this happy stuff. Mr. Doom and Gloom is here. Okay, you do see my screen, right?
We've got you. We are reading your emails.
Yeah, I just, I don't know what I did here. Yeah. How do I get this back up?
On your PowerPoint. Close your PowerPoint, Ted. Yeah. Okay, now on your screen. Screen. And then it's not up. You must have closed it out. Pull up your PowerPoint. The best budget director in the state, maybe not the best technician though. And ask them if they
We've got that part. If you
okay.
Yeah, just you can use that, Ted, because we can see that. It's just got some surrounding stuff in
Yeah,
it.
we'll just
That's fine.
go to new slide, or not new slide, go to like you would in normal life. Slideshow.
Okay. Right, yep, not my highest level of confidence. Okay, so, yes, when we adopted the budget, the fiscal year 21 budget, there was conversation among the commissioners about reopening the budget sometime in the fall. Basically, what I'm doing here is telling you what we know, which isn't a lot. And I think the end message from me is, I don't think there's any basis for us to do anything we haven't already done. So COVID impacts fiscal year 21 and beyond. First, let's talk a little bit about fiscal year 20, the year that just ended, a little bit of good news. But don't get too excited about that. Revenues, and these are all tentative numbers. Our financial audit isn't over yet, but these all ought to be pretty close to where we're going to end up. We're actually expecting to be almost $3 million above budget for revenues. That's not what you heard from me as we were building the budget last year. I'm going to come back to this on the next slide. Expenditures, we think we're going to save about $13 million against budget. A few big reasons for that. First, during fiscal year 20, the commissioners acted to reduce spending. We had a favorable snow and ice year, so we didn't spend a lot of money on that. And the shutdown, in some ways, actually saved us money. There's money we might have spent that we didn't because of the shutdown. So the combination of revenues in excess of budget and expenditures under budget, we're estimating $15.7 million from fiscal year 20. Now, $4 million of that is already planned for fiscal year 22. That's that 1% that we assume is always going to be available when we build into our projections. Now, you might remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to you about my desire to move us away from assuming that 1%. And I still believe it's the right thing for us to do, but clearly now is not the right time to try and make that change. So 15.7 minus the 4 million already planned would leave you with $11.7 million of new unassigned fund balance. We have an existing $18 million of unassigned fund balance. Now, that's a bigger number than you've heard in the past. The reason that's bigger is, number one, in the fiscal year 21 budget process, you didn't use any of our unassigned fund balance. So what we had, we held on to. And that was a very conscious decision to maintain as much flexibility as we could for what was coming our way. And the other reason is you unassigned some money that we had built into our 6-year plan, where we had said we're going to use unassigned fund balance sometime in the future. We pulled all that back, again, with the idea of building flexibility. And a side benefit of that, when you look at our operating plan now, I would say you get a true picture of how our plan is set up right now, where the use of unassigned fund balance before would have masked some of what was going on. So we have a new 11.7 added to an existing 18 million, leaving us with an unassigned fund balance of $29.7 million. Now, I know you see $30 million sitting there, and your minds probably quickly start to move to things that you would like to get accomplished. I'm gonna ask you to try and shove those thoughts out. I'm gonna argue we need to hang on to this money. This is our life raft. I said I would talk a little bit more about fiscal year 20 revenues and why they don't look like what I said they might look like. We had actually told you that we could see losses of up to $4 million a month as we went through the shutdown. And we said we might see for the year $15 million below budget. I just told you we think we're going to be about $3 million in excess of budget. So why is that? What changed? The biggest change is income tax. That was the biggest part of what we saw as the potential downturn And the reason why we're suggesting a little bit more instead of a good bit less. I'm not going to suggest that I totally understand what is going on with income tax. And on Friday, I met with people like me from across the state, and all of us are to some extent scratching our heads over what's going on and trying to make some sense of this. There are a few things we can point to. Now, first, we did actually see a dip in income tax distributions for what we think of as our current distributions, the money that's coming in from withholdings as we go through the year. That went down, not as much as we thought it might, but it did go down. The reason income tax is going to come in over budget is because of significant increases in reconciling distributions. This is money related to previous tax years. So this tells us nothing about what's happening today. It's just the state getting balanced out with us on what we received in the past versus what we should have received. One thing that clearly is in the mix here was the federal aid. When we talked about losses that could come about because of the shutdown, there was no attempt to build the impact of federal aid into those numbers. Now, the federal government did come through with aid, and clearly one important piece to that, to this picture, is the extra unemployment payments. People continue to receive money and continue to pay taxes on that money. So to the extent that that came in, money we might have lost hasn't been lost. I think the big idea here to hang on to with income tax is I and others are still convinced that this is largely a timing issue. The concerns we had are still the same concerns. We just haven't felt them yet. The recordation tax is a little bit different story. We made an assumption that people were going to stop trying to buy houses, that people weren't going to be out shopping. And we built in some decrease in recordation. We assumed a slowdown in the housing market. It didn't happen. In fact, we're actually seeing recordation come in at higher levels than we would typically expect. Then there were some other pieces in the mix. Now, you might remember we had a negative impact from the 911 fee. When the state made that change, we built in an assumption of what we were going to get, and it didn't turn out to be that much. That had nothing to do with COVID, but it plays into these numbers. Another big impact to us was our investment income. That was a very direct result of COVID and the changes in the federal interest rates. And then there were smaller pieces, but important enough to matter. Things like admissions and amusements, wine festivals, some of our park fees. Those are down because of what's going on. Now let's look at fiscal year 21, the year we're in. Now first, some actions. Big one, the commissioners adopted a 21 budget that was a little bit smaller than our fiscal year 20 budget. I think that was absolutely a prudent thing to do. Facing as much uncertainty as we had, it was hard to argue for building in increased costs. And arguably, we could have gone for an even smaller budget, and it might have made sense for us to do. The problem with doing that is that would have required us to start making ongoing changes to services and service levels while we were still facing an uncertain situation. Even now, we don't know what we're going to have to do. And we were, 6 months ago with that same uncertainty. We are being careful with our FY21 expenditures, but there's not a lot to gain here because remember, we didn't increase the budget. So there's not a lot of new money to say, well, let's not spend that. And I said we adopted a smaller budget in 21 than 20. Now the school system with maintenance of effort actually still got an increase. So everything else actually went down even a little bit more than that might feel like. We are carefully reviewing positions as they become open. Not every position that has come open has been filled. We are in a process, an ongoing process of evaluating opportunities to reduce expenditures if we need to do that. And it's really important to understand, if we need to make any significant change, that will mean evaluating, do we stop providing certain services that we're providing today? Do we reduce levels of service? positions connected to those services would have to go away. There's no money to go to make significant change that isn't tied to this idea of what services are we going to offer. Now back to that $30 million of unassigned fund balance. If we need to act, those reserves are going to give us time to carefully consider our options. A much better place to be than having to hurriedly make expenditure side cuts to get the budget balanced. Prospects for 21. You know, what can we say about what's coming in 21? And the big answer is we still have nothing hard, very little hard data to go on. We are still facing a lot of uncertainty. Property tax, I would say, isn't likely to be a concern for us in fiscal year 2021. There are things that we're keeping an eye on, though. Empty buildings. If businesses have closed down, do you get enough empty buildings that starts to be a concern on assessments? That's more likely to be an impact on 22 and beyond if that were to happen, though. Reduced footprints. We hear stories of companies saying, we don't need 10,000 square feet anymore. 5,000 square feet will do it. What will be the impact on the commercial property assessments and our base? Tax appeals, we have to wonder, will some people say things have changed? My tax assessment is now wrong. One thing that maybe will help us is we see businesses starting to look at building space in a new way. And one thing that was interesting to me is Amazon is looking at non-traditional sorts of spaces, the kind of places we might think of as a store to walk into, to use as a partial inventory holding place to get closer to where they need things. Income tax remains a big concern. This is the big one for us. I told you FY20 was very hard to understand. I don't know anybody who thinks that they have a good handle on what is going to happen to us in 21. My feeling is widely shared across the state, though, that we are still going to feel an impact in income tax. The questions just remain: when do we feel it, and how big does it get? Recordation tax is not the same concern to me right now that it was when we were putting the budget together, but that could still change. And that's very much tied to what goes on with the housing market. Then there are other revenues, again, relatively small impact, but those same things I mentioned before. The longer we're dealing with COVID, the longer we'll be missing out on revenue from admissions and amusements in our parks. If this goes to the next wine festival in September, it would have an impact. We don't want to forget that regular life continues on. If we have a bad snow or ice year, we're going to have to deal with that. Are there unexpected expenditures that we haven't built into our plan? And you might say, well, what would those be? And my answer is, I don't know, because that's the whole point. If it be something unexpected, we haven't planned for it. And then mid-year state cuts, I think, need to be on our mind. Now, the Board of Public Works has significant authority to cut the state budget, including money that's coming to Carroll County. They already went through one round of cuts, backed away from a few things, but there's nothing to prevent them from coming back again. And connected to that, I heard recently the State Board of Revenue Estimates right now is suggesting about an $800 million shortfall in revenue for fiscal year 21. That could prompt the Board of Public Works to more action. Prospects for 22 and beyond. Another important idea. I don't think anybody should be thinking that this is a short-term concern for us. This problem will continue in some way for some number of years. Property tax, the longer COVID continues, the more inclined I would be to start worrying again, are we going to see an impact for property tax? So for 21, I don't think it's a problem. But if this doesn't end in 22, I start to question that. income tax, the longer COVID goes on, the greater my concerns become here. How many businesses close? How many people lose their jobs? How many people can't find new jobs? Recordation tax, same story as property tax. Other revenues, every day that COVID continues, we're losing revenues, small that they are. The state, I believe, has a more difficult problem than we do. I have plenty of concerns about where we are, but their situation is even worse. And as we've talked about many times, when the state has a budget problem, that's a problem for us. Oh yeah, and in 22, the current Board of Revenue estimates is a $3.4 billion shortfall for fiscal year 22. This is an idea that just popped up for me recently. I hadn't thought about it before. But what's going on in schools and COVID, some people are pulling their kids out of school, public schools, and putting them in private schools because they're handling things differently. Or people are just pulling them home and saying, I'm going to homeschool. State funding for schools is largely driven by enrollment. If enrollment goes down, state funding to the schools will go down. And of course, they have nowhere else to turn then other than to their county funding sources. I've said this a number of times already. I want to put it up big on the screen here. Huge uncertainty remains. And part of my worry on this is, I think with all of us, it's been going on long enough that even though fundamentally nothing much has changed, it's hard not to start to get numb to it after a while. And as we start making things feel more normal, I don't want to lose the idea that right now we don't really know anything new about this whole COVID situation and what its impact is going to be on us yet. So I wanted to try to quantify this for you in some way. Now, first, a reminder, this is our 6-year operating plan as it exists right now. This is what you adopted in May. And the big thing I want to point out is, even before we talk about any of this COVID stuff, when you look out to the last 2 years of your plan, we already have negative numbers in the bottom line. That's saying we have expenditure plans in place and we don't have enough revenue planned to cover those expenditures. Something will need to change. And it's not just about those 2 years. This is, as things stand, if nothing changes, this is a growing problem. The negative number in fiscal year 27 will be larger than the negative number in fiscal year 26. Okay, we're going to try to give you a sense of what could happen. I want to emphasize, I'm saying what could happen. I don't have any way to tell you what will happen. What we're going to try and lay out here for you is what seems like a range of possibilities that have reasonable likelihood with the things that the information we have today. These next 2 slides are based on work that the Board of Revenue Estimates did at the state level. They have access to a lot more data than we do, and they have a lot more resources to put into trying to figure these things out. I'm not going to spend time going into how they did it. I'm going to say they drew certain, I don't want to say conclusions, because again, they're not saying what's going to happen, but they built certain reasonable assumptions of what could be in our future. Now try and get to a point through here. Okay, yeah. Okay, we're showing 4 years. You should not take that as me saying this impact will be over in 4 years. I don't know that, but we had to give you some timeline to look at. Now, when you see these bluish gray kind of bars here, that is what I'll call the bad scenario. We're saying there will be a negative impact to us. In fiscal year 21, that would be something like 17 or 18 million dollars of lost revenue, dropping to maybe 9 in fiscal year 22, and then actually returning to a positive in 24, under the assumptions we made. The even worse scenario would be adding this gold to this gray. So now, instead of just looking at this gray here, you add on this gold and then look at this entire total. So now, instead of 17 or 18 million dollars, we're looking at a $24 million loss. Now, the big thing that changes between the bad scenario and the even worse scenario is, in the bad scenario, 22 is not as big a problem as 21. In the even worse scenario, 22 is a worse problem than 21. And there's a lot behind that, but two of the big things would be no assumption that there is additional federal aid. Of course, if the federal government comes with more money, now some of these things are going to change. This assumes that there's not more help coming. And the other is, if COVID goes on long enough, and some of those things I talked about, businesses continue to close, job losses mount, people can't find jobs, the situation will get worse before it gets better. And then for this 4-year picture, we made pretty arbitrary assumptions of just working our way back out from that point. But remember, we've talked about, the Great Recession, and our initial assumptions that would be short-lived, and how a decade later, we still haven't really shaken ourselves free of the Great Recession. I'm not going to make an argument that we're not going to be facing the same kind of problem with what's happening today. It could be that a decade from now, we're still going to be talking about the lingering effects of this. But we don't know enough to try and lay that out in that kind of detail. Okay, so this is the possible revenue loss scenarios. And again, I want to point out, I told you bad and even worse. I can't tell you that things won't end up better than this. Maybe they will, it's possible. But I also can't tell you that this is the worst case. It could be that things are worse than we put up here. What we've given you is a range of likely possibilities. Now I'm going to add to that same graph, what would we do about this? So over here, you see that loss we've been talking about. This big blue bar here is use of your unassigned fund balance, that $30 million I told you about. So my message to you here is, unless things get really, really bad, we can manage through fiscal year 21 with that reserve that you have in hand. You would not be forced into making quick decisions on how to cut expenditures. And this is a really big deal. To be able to take the next year, or part of the next year, to carefully think through, what are our priorities? What are the things that we most need to hang on to? What are the things that become most expendable? Even if not desirable to stop, the most expendable if you have to do something. That's a much stronger place to be than having to say, okay, in the next 2 weeks, we need to figure this out. Now, in saying that, I think that gives us some comfort, but I don't want you to take too much comfort from it. Remember, by the time you're adopting your budget, our biggest question mark, income tax, you still will only know about half of what is going to happen for FY21. We will have nowhere near as much information as we will want to have to make decisions about fiscal year 22 and beyond. Our first distribution will be at the end of November. If that goes down a lot, that will be an indicator, I think, that, okay, the impact we've been waiting for is here. And I think that probably will trigger actions on our part to say, okay, we need to start talking about what are we going to change for fiscal year 22 and beyond. If there's not a big impact to November, I'm still left to think that doesn't tell us anything. It still just leaves us with the same uncertainty we have today. Now, if we look to FY22, and the same, if we get into the even worse scenario, even if it's not all the way down to the bottom of this, once we get past this blue here, if we're anywhere down here, we're left now to start making other decisions to make this work, to balance out our budget. And that brings us back to the idea of looking at services and service levels. I want to go back to 21 again. I don't believe we can wait until 22 to see everything we're hoping to see before we can start making those decisions. I think you really need to be thinking in terms of when you adopt the fiscal year 22 budget, we have to be doing it consciously considering what do we feel like we can adopt in a fiscal year 22 budget. And then, of course, that will have implications for 23, 24, and so on. Now, not everything is about COVID. There are other things we need to be thinking about that are there with or without. As I pointed out to you, our operating plan is already unbalanced. Even if our COVID problem disappeared tomorrow, we still have that to deal with. How do we bring our plans for providing services and facilities and infrastructure back into line with the revenue we believe will be available? At some point, we will have to make choices either to create more revenue or to make expenditures go away. I mentioned this earlier, but too important to forget. The state's plan is unbalanced, and their problems will become our problems. Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. We've been talking a lot about this in recent months. Without a solution other than drawing on growing general fund subsidies, this will continue to have a growing impact on your operating plan, a growing negative impact on your operating plan. Fire and EMS, we're starting down that road of creating this new department. We do not have anything built into our plan other than the director and an assistant. Work is happening right now trying to determine how will this work? What will we be able to do with money that you are already making available for these purposes? But I think it would be way premature for me to suggest to you that we won't have to find more money. If we do, it's not in our plan. That's going to make things even more difficult. You just added 2 911 positions to provide support to Westminster. Those are not budgeted. They're not in our plan. And you've been having ongoing conversations about 4 positions for 911 that haven't been dealt with. And the 2 you added do absolutely nothing to relieve the need for the 4 that you've been talking about. This is not in our plan. And then just a reminder, not to pile on, but in the last budget process, as part of your trying to balance things out, you reduced capital funding to roads, facilities, and IT. Facilities and IT in an ongoing way. And we didn't do that with any idea that need had gone away. I mean, this was expenditure side driven. How do we make things work? Now, of course, this is not the whole list of things that we have to be thinking about and be concerned about, but some of the big ones. All right, so putting all that together, we didn't get hurt in fiscal year 20. That's good. But I don't think this should lead you to in any way get comfortable about what's coming in our future. That uncertainty remains. Any prospects I see for upside are much, much smaller than the prospects for downside from where we are right now. Okay, that's what I wanted to share with you. We can talk about whatever you would like, if you like. Again, I think my big message here is, if there was still any thinking that we can do something more in the fiscal year 21 budget than we have, I really don't believe that we have that opportunity.
Okay, we're gonna drop that screen so we can see everybody here. Thank you, Ted. Comments, questions from my colleagues for Ted or Deb, who is on here as well? I'll open up the floor here. A lot to think about, a lot to take in. And, you know, we have our work cut out for us, there's no doubt. And I think the biggest word that we get out of here is uncertainty. That's where we are on the edge of our seats. So, Eric, you've got your.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wentz. Ted, as always, thank you very much. I tried to lay a little bit of groundwork for this presentation for you at the chamber meeting, and thankfully the press covered a little bit, and I mentioned at the chamber meeting for people to tune into this and find out. My question is about the November revenue distributions. When in November will we have those figures? And after you have those figures, will you come back in front of us and give us an update on that as well?
It comes right at the end of November. And I typically update you all with an email after we get those distributions. But given the circumstances, if you'd like me to come to a meeting to talk about it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Ted, thanks for the good news with the new fund balance. I was expecting this to be much worse than what you indicated. It does give us a little bit of a cushion. But the bad news is that cushion may not last long. So I agree with Commissioner Wentz that I guess the uncertainty is our worst enemy at this time, but we could be in a lot worse situation. The fact that we do predict out 5 years in the future is kind of keeping us grounded at this point. And I don't know how we equate to other jurisdictions in this whole thing, but it looks like we are at least somewhat prepared. We're preparing for the worst case in the future, and we may be in a little better situation to handle than some. So thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, I think just echoing a little bit of what's been said, the 5-year plan definitely works. I mean, that's what I'm used to from my experience with the military. The POM process is a 5-year, and it allows us to absorb some of these challenges. Secretary Rumsfeld is very well known for saying the unknown of the unknowns, and that's kind of where we're at. And you laid that out pretty well for us this morning. So good work. It's as clear as it can be, and you provided it as clear as it can be for today. And I appreciate you emphasizing the fact that we do have the availability to act and not just react by leaving that unfunded, unassigned fund balance alone. So we just have to be, mature about doing that to allow us to act if necessary. So good job.
So for me, just a couple comments here. Number one, I remain very skittish about anything moving forward, and it might have to do with the amount of the amount of meetings that I've been attending at the MACO level. We heard from the comptroller, and Ted, I know you're in on these meetings as well, but we heard from the comptroller about 2 weeks ago, and if there was anything doom and gloom, it was doomy and gloomier than Ted. So, and that comes right from the top. The other thing that I think we need to keep in mind here is, and Ted, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the state aid that we receive is, the majority of it is for education. We get very little other than that. The percentages are not there on other areas. So when we're talking about a possible ramification or the trickle-down effect that occurs because the state's going to have trouble, that's really, that's something to keep in mind, because with the exception of education, we're not getting a lot of state aid. So what little we get, cutting that is extremely troubling. Right?
Yes, you're exactly right. And because there's not a whole lot of money coming to us, my bigger concern is actually the passing on of costs to us. the state is paying something today and they'll say, counties, it's your job tomorrow. And I'm not predicting this, but the obvious example would be, some years ago, they sent us part of the cost of teacher pensions. They could decide to send us a larger part of that cost.
Yeah, I think we've, and the things that are going on over in Annapolis when it comes to that, and this is, I'm not here to make a statement or faulting anyone on it, but, a prime example is the fact that the way in which they're trying to make some of these cuts also has me shaking my head. I brought up to you guys about 3 or 4 weeks ago about the helicopter, one of the ships from the troopers that was cut. And, that was kind of slid in underneath the radar. Fire and EMS from across the state resounded a huge please no. And that's happening as we speak. We're down one ship now, and there are counties that are going unprotected with one of those ships. And that's just unacceptable. But I know that there's got to be cuts that are made. So my point here is the fact that when they start making these cuts, we don't know where they're coming from, and that's troubling. So I sort of led this charge a little bit to try to get the seed planted in the rest of your minds that we would need to revisit this with the possibility of reopening. I don't want to make that decision today because there's only 4 of us here, and out of respect for Commissioner Frazier, I don't think we should do that at all. But when he has a chance to see this presentation, and he will, I think he'll agree that I think holding the line here until we begin again in March, which will be here like that, is probably the action here. But again, I don't want to do that until Dennis is here. So your thoughts on that, gentlemen? Dick?
I kind of agree with you, but I think one thing came out of this presentation. We have the ability with the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund to make changes and start working on it. And if nothing else that I heard in this, I think that's one that we have to really start focusing on in the next couple months to have a good plan to get that down, and that would help. That would help us. And I know we're working on it somewhat, but Roberta, I would hope this would be our priority in the next several months to help get this budget squared away for future.
Staff is working on that since their presentation on the system benefit charge, commissioners last month, end of last month, beginning of this month. Staff has been working on putting together some recommendations, and we'll be back for it in you.
And Dick, you've been pushing this, rightly so, for a while. I guess my question, and I just don't know, because of my lack of understanding, if we focus on that, does that cause us to have to open up the rest of the budget? Or can we do this divorced from the budget? And I don't know.
Yes, you can act on a system benefit charge separate from the budget process. Now, there might be other things that you would consider that the answer would be different.
Okay.
Okay. Anything, Eric, anything? Okay, Eric's good. Ed, Dick, you good here? Okay. We'll Roberta, if you will, I'd like to put this back on the agenda. Just to make it official, maybe that we're going to hold the line here until we begin, because we kind of said we were going to revisiting. So I'd kind of like to maybe put that to bed if we can, but I won't do it until we have all 5 here. So if maybe we could kind of put it in somewhere in next week's agenda, just so we can get Commissioner Frazier. We don't have to do the whole presentation again because Dennis will see it. We all know how Dennis operates. He'll be watching and he'll be looking at this. I think we need the discussion of all 5 of us in order to say, okay, we're just officially now rolling on, or do we want to reopen? And I think we all know what we want to do here. But again, let's wait for Dennis and put that in next week. Okay? Okay. Everybody good? All right, Ted, thank you. Deb, especially thank you, because Ted wouldn't have been able to get the presentation up if it wouldn't have been for you. So let's be clear about that one. So we appreciate your help on all that, and more to come. And thank you, Ted. You mentioned doom and gloom, but let's change that to reality, because that's what it is, not doom and gloom. So even though you threw the bathroom door up against me and almost spilled my coffee this morning, I still appreciate everything you do for us, Ted. So there you go. All right. With that being said, we're going to move on. We have a couple more items here. And the first one is the annual renewal of the GIS software maintenance and support. And that's the Department of Technology Services. And our director, Mr. Ripper, is on here. Mark, good morning.
Morning, Commissioner. So I'll let Mike go ahead first and introduce the.
Good morning. Sorry, I didn't mean to dish you, Mike.
No, that's all right.
Good. So before we begin, let's turn it over to Mike Myers from purchasing to make the formal presentation. Mike Myers, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, we'd like to receive your approval to award the contract for the annual renewal of the GIS software maintenance and support to Esri in the not to exceed amount of $41,300.
Okay, Commissioners, this is the annual renewal. It's something we do every year. The price is in line with what's been there in the past. I do have with me today Mr. Tom Dowd, who is the manager of the GIS department here in the county, in case you had any questions for him on the usage. The software package is used by about 8 different departments on a regular basis for a variety of things in planning, 911 and other areas. So, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to ask them, or Tom might step in and answer them.
Any questions for Mark or Tom?
It's too technical for me.
Look, this is very, very important work.
Oh,
the
extremely.
GIS part of this is critically important. And Mark, you mentioned public safety. That's just one of the areas, but that may be especially important as we need to move forward here. So that was really put front and center when we were going through the Next Gen 911 discussion down in Annapolis over the last year or two. You got to have that GIS support. And Tom, we appreciate all that you do down there to make sure that that works. So kudos to you. With that, I'll make the motion that we award the contract for the annual renewal of the GIS software maintenance support to ESRI in the not to exceed amount of $41,300.
Second.
Got a second from Commissioner Boucher. Any other questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Moving on, Microsoft Office 365 and Exchange subscription renewal. Mr. Myers.
Thank you. We'd like to receive your approval to award the contract for the Microsoft Office 365 and Exchange subscription renewal to Computer Discount Warehouse in the total amount of $195,378.72.
Okay, Commissioners, this is another annual renewal. Again, it's in line with what we've been paying in the past. This is the software that everybody in the county uses. It includes the email, word processing, spreadsheets, and other applications that people use in order to do their daily tasks. And something we need to have. Today I have with me Mr. Sixton Cadell, who is our networking manager, and Ms. Bobby Savaliski, who is in charge of the client services area. If you had any additional questions beyond that.
Questions for Sixton or Bobby or Mark? Is this annual, Mark? Is this a year? Am I reading?
Yes, this is an annual. So we no longer own the software. We actually are doing what we call a lease on software, which is pretty standard nowadays. There was a point in time 20 years ago where you actually used to go out and buy the packages and have to upgrade them. One of the big advantages to the lease is that the software is always up to date and is always getting the security patches that it needs to help keep us safe on our network.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. All right. I move the Board of Commissioners award the contract for the Microsoft Office 365 and Exchange subscription renewal to Computer Discount Warehouse in the amount of $195,378.72.
Second.
A little slow today, Weaver. All right. Okay, whatever. All right. Any other questions for Sixton, Bobby, or Mark on this one? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank
Pick on
you.
Weaver Day.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Sixton, for all you do, and thank you, Bobby. We couldn't do these things without you. And I'm electronically challenged as it is, and of all people, Bobby knows that. So we appreciate your help. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Let's move into Public Works. Bid approvals for water valve bolts, Group 1. Mr. Myers.
All right. Yes, now we'd like to receive your approval to award a contract for the replacement of water valve bolts at 19 locations within the Eldersburg Estates water area. We'd like to award that to HDI Contractors. We went out to bid, received 2 bids, and HDI was the lowest in the amount of $36,855.
Mr. Watcher, you're muted. Unmute.
How about that? Good
There
morning,
you go.
commissioners.
Good morning.
Just to let you know, the general information that I present for this agenda item will also apply to the next item, item number 10. As per a similar project that was presented to this board for approval in May of 2019, water valves installed throughout the county and the region during the periods of heavy construction in the 1980s and 90s included cast iron bolt connections to water mains. This problem is not exclusive to Carroll County by any means. As we have experienced all too often, cast iron water valve bolts rust over time and snap and fail both unexpectedly as well as when the water valve is being turned for maintenance or for a system need. In fact, our most recent water main break several months ago near the southern intersection of Johnsville Road and Maryland 32 was caused by the sudden failure of cast iron bolts on a water valve assembly. These bolt failures are a continuing challenge for the Bureau. Lack of confidence in the integrity of the cast iron bolts limits our routine maintenance activity. It is estimated that approximately 30% or 1,100 of the 4,300 water valves in the Freedom District were installed with cast iron bolts. This project is an ongoing proactive approach to replace the cast iron water valve bolt assemblies with stainless steel bolts. As Mike said, the current water valve project groupings are within Eldersburg Estates. As for other Bureau projects, the subject water valve assembly locations were divided into meaningful roadway groupings to generate both contractor interest and competitive bids. This agenda item includes the award of the contract for Group 1. The scope of Group 1 includes the replacement of bolts and the associated pavement rehab work on a total of 19 water valve assemblies on Tidings Road. The average cost per location is $1,900, and this is very consistent with previous costs. Any questions?
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners award contract for the replacement of water valves, bolts at 19 locations within Eldersburg Estates of the Freedom District service area to HGI Contractors, in the amount of $36,855.
Second. Beat you.
It just take, you just gotta poke him.
I thought he was slow. Now he's getting fast.
All right. I got a motion and second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Next up is groups 2 and 3 for water valve bolts. Mike?
Yep, so a continuation of the last agenda item. We did this in 3 different groups. So we'd like to award groups 2 and 3 for this one to Mid-Atlantic Utilities in the total amount of $90,435. You can see from the briefing paper, Mid-Atlantic was the low bidder on groups 2 and 3. So we'd like to combine this into one contract for the total amount of $90,435.
Commissioners, the scope of work for groups 2 and 3 includes the replacement of bolts and the associated pavement rehab work on a total of 43 water valve assemblies on 9 different roadways within within the community. The average cost per location for these two groupings is $2,100. Again, it's very consistent with previous unit costs. The reason for the difference with that for item number 9 is expanded pavement rehab work. The patches are slightly larger for groups 2 and 3. Any questions?
I'll move the Board of Commissioners award a contract for the replacement of water valve bolts at a total of 43 locations within Eldersburg Estates of the Freedom District Service area to Mid-Atlantic Utilities Incorporated in the overall amount of $90,435.
Second.
I wasn't even gonna try.
Yeah, don't even try anymore, Eric. Just let it go. Let it go. Got a motion and second. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Fairhaven Well Conceptual Design. Mike.
Yep, we would now like to request your approval to award a contract for the conceptual design of the replacement of the Fairhaven Well House in the Freedom District water area to CDM Smith in the amount of $38,400.
Some background information with regards to this project, Commissioners. The Fairhaven Well is located on the east side of Maryland 32, just north of Sykesville. It is a supplemental source of raw water for the Freedom District service area. The average daily water use for the Freedom service area ranges between 1.9 and 2.2 million gallons. As you are aware, the vast amount of this water is drawn from the reservoir and is then processed by the Freedom Water Treatment Plant. The Maryland Department of the Environment permit for the Fairhaven Well allows the county to withdraw a daily average of approximately 227,000 gallons. This definitely supports the Bureau's goal of a 20% redundant water supply. The Fairhaven Well House and the equipment needed to process the raw groundwater into finished drinking water has been in service since June of 2000 and has reached the end of its useful service life. The well house was taken offline in late 2019 as a precaution due to safety concerns with the chlorine and the fluoride chemical feed systems. With the overall condition of the well house, it was determined that it would be fiscally prudent to work towards an overall replacement upgrade rather than a piecemeal repair approach. As Mike said, the award of this contract is for the conceptual design of the replacement well house and will include information regarding the replacement building, chemical feed systems for chlorination, fluoridation, and anti-corrosion, piping, metering, controls, and site layout. And upon county approval, this information will be used as the basis for the construction drawings for the replacement project itself. Any questions?
Is this on state property?
This is on property that we leased from a church in the Sykesville area. I'm not sure what the name of the church is, but we have a 20 or a 40-year lease with that church. We pay an annual rate rental for the property.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dick. Just real quick, I'd like to know what that church is, just for my own edification. But okay.
I will follow up with you.
Yeah, it's 82 million gallons out of an aquifer. Is that have the recharge ability for that amount of water? That aquifer, I mean, does it go down or has it been able to recharge?
As far as that question goes, Commissioner Weaver, with respect to the MDE permit, they have to have a comfort level with the aquifer being recharged. They would not have granted us the ability to draw that quantity of water out of it with respect to that question.
I'll make the motion, Board of Commissioners award contract for the conceptual design of the replacement Fairhaven Well House to CDM Smith in the amount of $38,400.
Second.
I've got a motion and second. All right. Any other comments on this one? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And finally, construction inspection services for the Liberty Lake Drive water main and looping. Mike.
Thank you. Yep, we'd like to request your approval to award a contract for the construction inspection services for the Liberty Lake project to Whitman, Reichart and Associates in the total amount of $26,731.
Andy, you're muted again.
And that's embarrassing. That can't happen again.
We all do
As
it.
you are aware, Commissioners, the board approved the contract for construction of this project to ECM Corporation 2 weeks ago during open session. The scope of this project includes the replacement of existing portions of the cast iron water mains and the completion of the water main loop by adding a missing 300-foot segment. This agenda item is for the remaining component of the project, construction inspection services. With this being the Bureau's first interaction with ECM Corporation, third-party construction inspection services will ensure that the project is constructed to county standards. And we anticipate that the construction project will begin by mid-October and will take approximately 6 to 8 weeks to complete.
Bottom line, let's finish what we started. I'll move the Board of Commissioners award a contract for construction inspection services for Liberty Lake Drive water main and looping project to Whitman, Rickford and Associates LLP in the amount of $26,731.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. What are you doing, Boucher?
I was sleeping.
Okay, jeez. All right, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Mike, Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, that gets us to the end of our agenda. We've got open admin now, and the first thing on our agenda for open admin, I'd like to pull Linda Eisenberg back in for a brief explanation on a census event that's coming up. Linda?
All right, good afternoon again, Commissioners. So we have only 6 more short days left in the 2020 count of the decennial census. And with the libraries reopening, the Finksburg Library on Friday, September 25th, will be hosting the Monty Leicester and the Leicester Quartet at the Finksburg Library. This will be a social distance open air event outside where people will either be sitting in their vehicles or spread out on the field at the Finksburg Library. In order to continue to get the word out on the census and get the maximum count possible for Carroll County, we still have some opportunities within our grants too to fund another ice cream social. So piggybacking off their event that they're already hosting, we are going to, with your concurrence, bring the Cal truck back out again and our census materials and census tablets for those who have not taken the census yet to have yet another opportunity. And we wanted to make sure that we came before you today. Sorry, it's at the last minute. We were just able to coordinate things timing wise with the library.
Listen, I'm all in favor of this event at the Finksburg Library with one exception. I want Weaver to be a part of the quartet.
That may not be a good idea for their safety.
I think
he's going to bring the cows for the milk.
Well, or that. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good there, Linda. That's fine. Again, the deadline is the 30th, right? For count, the official end of the count.
Correct.
Okay.
Real quickly, Ms. Eisenberg, was my 2 small municipalities able to get their numbers up in the end?
So Union Bridge did end up, and they had already surpassed their 2010 numbers. Unfortunately, New Windsor has not surpassed their 2010 numbers. Hopefully, maybe in these last 6 days, we've continued to work with them to come up with ideas to continue to push the word out in the municipality. So we'll keep giving it the Old College try for the remaining 6 days left.
Well, I appreciate the update. We'll have to go out and kick the bushes to get some more rabbits.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thanks, Linda. You know, Eric, you in a chipmunk suit with one of those spinning signs that says
There you
"Get
go.
counted" at the intersection there of High Street and
Like the furniture salesman.
that's
sign?
what I'm thinking. So let's just put it out there. All right, very good. All right, open admin. Just a couple things. Well, a couple things from me. We're having that event for Clay on next Tuesday, right? Is it Tuesday? Yes. We do have a proc. So would noon work for you guys? out there? Does that work? I'd like to get the majority of us together at noon out there for some photo ops and whatever. Does that work? Ed and Dick, that work for you? Okay. Okay. And I'll be in touch with Dennis to make sure we can get him in that too. I'm not sure when he's coming back, but I'll get in touch with him. Before this next item, Roberta, you have anything for open admin? All right. The last thing that I have for open admin is I want to discuss what we've done today here with this testing of this room to try to get us into some sort of resemblance of a hybrid approach. And I had touched base with you, Ed. You were actually here when we talked about this. Dennis was on the road. And Dick, I apologize to you again, my friend, that I did not reach out to you personally to tell you that we were going to try to test this system today. That's on me, and I won't let that happen again. I don't know how I'm not sure how it worked. I know that it's a little bit funky in here because while the public's seeing us on the big cameras, Eric, you're not seeing yourself on your camera. Mm-hmm. So that's something we got to, because it's kind of nice to be able to follow along there.
Throws us off a little bit.
Yeah, so I know that was throwing you off a little bit, and he was trying to. So we've got some things to iron out, and we're not going to be able to have presenters in this room anytime soon. It's not set up for that, and we're not going to be able to get public comment anytime soon in here. It's not set up for that. So the emphasis here was trying to get some of us in here to maybe get back to some sort of normalcy. Now, I'm going to stop talking. We had some issues here today, and we've got some things to work out. Thoughts from you three guys?
Well, I think this was a great step. I try to explain to constituents we're taking baby steps, and it was very important to do this and realize the bugs we have instead of a full-blown board meeting of all of us here and have all these glitches. So hopefully we'll get all the little glitches worked out, and I think it'll work out well. And I think it's reassuring to the public too. I think my colleagues and I, always emphasize we're like brothers, and there's a certain dynamic that takes place with us. And I'm looking forward to slowly but eventually getting back into that situation. I appreciate you taking initiative. Also, a big shout out goes to the Department of Public Works setting us up and the IT people trying to arrange this. We haven't done this before, so I'm looking forward to everyone being understanding about the steps we're taking. And Commissioner Wentz, I appreciate you taking the initiative on this, and we'll get the bugs worked out.
Ed, Dick?
Ditto.
Yeah, it's got some bugs to it and problems, but one thing, we don't have a large staff to deal with here to meet, and it's a step in the right direction.
All right, so we'll talk amongst ourselves to see, maybe we can get Ed or Dick, you in here, or Dennis next week, and
What if we leave Dennis out again?
Well, there's that. I mean, but maybe just to kind of rotate through, and I'll stay home, or for that matter, we could be in our offices too. But I'd like to try to rotate some of the folks through here just to try to get a feel for this before we come back in. And I'll be clear, we do have the plexiglass between us, Eric, as we sit here today. And Ed, you saw it when you were in here the other day. We're challenged with the 6-foot distancing thing if we sit like we are, but we do have that level of protection in place right now. So I'm not sure how we're ever going to anytime soon be able to go whoop and all 5 of us are at the dais. That's the thing that we're going to have to deal with here. But we'll work those out, and we'll kind of rotate through here as we can.
And I think the plexiglass is a good example for like restaurants, some innovative ideas that'll eventually evolve out into the public sector or private sector.
Okay. All right. Very good.
I mean, honestly, the biggest challenge is having to be wearing pants and shoes and socks. I mean, going into the office.
See,
but
I knew.
Just saying. I mean, I got to go to cleaners now and actually get my clothes cleaned. I mean, but that's okay. I'm a team player.
Pajama bottoms are not acceptable.
Exactly.
As Chris Swam just alluded to, you could probably still get away with that in here, Rothstein. I'm not sure how you're going to get from your office to here, but you could probably. What's the matter, Weaver?
Don't tempt me. Don't put the challenge out there.
Images are not good.
Yeah, please no boxer briefs.
All right. And everything that we're doing here, we're listen, folks, we're trying. We're doing the best we can, and kudos to our staff because our staff working hard here, and they're taking the necessary precautions as well in order to be able to maintain their existence in this building as we try to get back to normal. So we're doing the best we can, and maybe we'll rotate through this for a while until we get the hang of it, and then we'll go from there. All right, anything else for open admin before we get into agendas?
Steve, I have one, and that is on Sunday, remembering our heroes. The Carroll Hospice is doing their luminary event, and they do it every year. It is a bit challenged this year to do it. It starts, I think, at 6:30, and they're going to let the luminaries go at 7:30 with a moment of reflection and prayer. It will be at the hospice on Stoner Avenue. It is focused on veterans that have passed and have gone, so they usually get a good crowd. It's just something special, just another way. And because you mentioned, veterans earlier on, I was going to punch it in there, but, just if we can highlight it, I think that's a good thing. So Sunday evening at the hospice. So.
Okay.
And there's no ceremony this year. It's just more of a drive-through, that type thing to honor.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Dick, because I was going to ask that question. Thanks. Okay.
Are there specific times?
It's and I know Celine has, and they have the flyer, but it's begin placing luminaries at 6 p.m. A brief moment of reflection and prayer at 7:30 to personalize, but there is, like Commissioner Weaver said, there is no actual ceremony for this. So.
Okay. All right. If Celine's got that, we'll have her contact Chris. You'll be in contact with him, and we'll push that out. Yeah. We'll push Celine, right? Yeah. Okay. Eric.
Commissioner Wentz, real quick, I don't want to upset the people down in Mount Airy and the volunteer fire department, but real quickly, this weekend is their duck derby. Union Bridge set an example, was successful. So now the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Department is also doing a duck derby event this weekend. I'm sure you can probably go onto the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Department website or the town itself and get some information, get some sponsorship on ducks. It's a really good family event. It's a very innovative way for the fire department to raise funds. So if you can, get down to Mount Airy and register a little ducky for the duck derby. Thank you.
Please tell me you don't have a duck suit.
I don't have a duck suit, but you're giving me ideas now.
Whew. Okay. All right. Anything else? Let's quickly run down through the agendas. The week of September the 28th, the first thing comes up on Wednesday the 30th, 6 p.m. Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Rothstein. That's virtual. On Thursday, October the 1st, we go into open session. We're going to get our usual COVID activity. Carroll County Board of Elections, approval for an application of COVID relief funding there. We're going to revisit the Manchester annexation. The WIOA Title I Carroll County grant funds for adult dislocated workers from economic development. We're going to do some public works purchases when it comes to motor oil, antifreeze, janitorial services, private landowner tree planting from Land and Resource Management, also Gillis Falls tree planting. Department of Technology Services, Dell tablets for fire departments. And then we're going to discuss the adoption of the proposed creation of Chapter 37 of our Department of Fire and EMS, which is as a result of the work that's been going on and the public hearing that we had last week. there'll be another agenda item or two. I know we're going to look at the budget again about whether we're revisiting or not, and we'll put that on there. And at 12:30, we're going to have to be ready to do our virtual consolidated transportation tour with MDOT, SHA, and the folks there. That's always, a thing that's very important to our transportation needs here in Carroll. Saturday the 3rd, Commissioner Rothstein has an Eagle Scout ceremony at St. Stephen's Anglican Church in Eldersburg. That's at 6 p.m. And Commissioner Weaver has the podcast. All right, October the 5th. Monday, October the 5th, Commissioner Rothstein has another Eagle Scout at Freedom Park in Sykesville at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday the 7th, Carroll County Career and Technology Center groundbreaking ceremony at 3 p.m. The 5 of us will be appearing there. And then at 6 p.m., Commissioner Rothstein has a Planning and Zoning Commission work session. Thursday the 8th, open session again. We're going to go into all things COVID. We have heat pumps at North Carroll Library, and that's the only agenda item we have that day, but of course that will grow as well. And Commissioner Frazier has the podcast for that week. Additions or corrections to any of that?
No, sir.
All right. Anything else on your end, Roberta? All right. I want to thank Chris Swam, who's been seated here in front of us today, operating the camera and the keyboards and everything else, and his team too, because we were experiencing a little technical difficulty there. So your guys were on it. So we appreciate that, Chris. This is a work in progress from this room, and we're going to continue to do that. Ed, Dick, Eric.
I just want to sincerely appreciate your leadership on trying to get this up and moving. And though we have glitches, I think we're moving in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Ed?
All good, thanks.
Weaver, you got anything? You want to make a second on anything?
I move we adjourn.
All right, Weaver made the motion to adjourn. I believe Commissioner Rothstein came flying in with the second, although he's very distraught about the way in which that came down. Everybody have a safe weekend. It's fall now officially. Be safe out there. Continue to do what you're doing. Do not become complacent. We're getting to the end of this tunnel, ladies and gentlemen. Work together. We'll get there. All those in favor? See you next week.
Thank you very much.